Hello and welcome to Live Reality Games. My name is Steven. And I'm back today with more Survivor BC The Golden Age post-game content. We are continuing our after-season deep dive entries with the one, the only winner of the most recent season, Braden S. Braden, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Very happy to be here.
Do you still have that victory high from winning that tribal council?
It's died down a little bit, but I mean at the same time I still haven't fully processed the fact that I won. It's still kind of like jumbling around somewhere in here, so yeah, that's
Because it's been about a month or so, a little over a month since the game has concluded.
yeah.
What have your thoughts been as time has progressed?
I've just been looking back on it, thinking about like all the different things and how actually crazy it was for how many things we did in 7 days, especially that like day 6 where we woke up and just did 4 rounds. That was so exhausting. Like thinking back to stuff like that, like how much we went through and how like hungry and tired and everything we were, it was like that's yeah, I've just been kind of reflecting on like the craziness that unfolded.
How much sleep do you say you got out there?
I think I got more than other people did. It was definitely the first night was probably the hardest sleeping out there with just the tarp. We had another little tarp that I definitely stole from a couple people because we had it like on 3 of us and I definitely rolled over with it. But um yeah, we it was definitely the first night was the hardest. I think I maybe got like 2 hours of sleep. But essentially it was just whenever the sun went down, we would start to like get ready for bed and go to bed. It'd probably take me like an hour every time to go to bed. And then the sun came up, it was just beaming on us. So obviously we were waking up around like 6 every morning, probably going to bed around 10, 11. So it was good sleeps. It wasn't too bad, but definitely could have been better.
So, how did you hear or learn about Survivor BC?
So I was playing in an org probably about 3 years ago called I Love Money, hosted by Dylan Andrews. And there was somebody in there, his name's Lance, and he was like, "Hey, there is this game that's near you. It's an org or it's an allergy, and I think you should try it out maybe." I was like 14 at the time. So like, perfect, that sounds so fun. So I put in an application at 14. I was like, this is so great. I told my mom, I was like, I'm gonna be on Survivor, and then there was just nothing for 2 years. Um and then Jira messages me on the Survivor BC account, probably about like 2 weeks prior to the actual beginning of the game. And he's like, "Hey, we just saw your application from 2 3 years ago. Would you like to put in another one? We are very interested." And I was like, "Forgot this existed." So yeah, that's how it happened.
Wow. Okay, so it was a long odyssey.
Hmm.
And so, when you put in your application, and you were told you're on the game, how much time do you have to prepare?
Like a week. It was like a good week. Yeah.
And so, what did you do in advance of going out there?
I just kind of like I don't know. I just kind of sat there. I was like, okay, well, this is crazy. How spontaneous of me. Look at me go. Yeah, I kind of just told people around me. I was like, I'm gonna be gone for a week. I stream, so I told my stream. I was like, I'm not gonna stream for a week. It was just kind of like preparing myself mentally and letting
Hmm.
people know around me. That was kind of
How were people reacting when you're telling them, like, I'm going to be in the woods playing Survivor for a week?
A lot of them thought I was kind of crazy, but people know that I'm kind of like that. I did like probably like 3 weeks prior, I did a YouTube video with my friends where we flew to an island that was like miles away from like any civilization. We stayed there for a day, just the 3 of us, for fun. So people know that I'm kind of like that kind of spontaneous person, you know what I mean? So a lot of them weren't too like surprised that I was gonna do something crazy like that, but the fact that it was like a big thing, like a show like Survivor, they're like, "Oh my god, that is so cool!" And my stream was freaking out. They're like, "You're gonna do so good!" I was like, "I don't know." So
So, coming in the game, what was your strategy? How'd you want to go about playing?
the funny thing about that is in my Meet Me video, I actually highlighted everything that I did end up doing. I walked in there to my Meet Me video and I was like, "Hey, I want to make everybody my friend. I want to make sure everybody really likes me in the beginning, and I want them to be able to take me far. And then when they start getting scared of me because they realize that I'm not just a 17-year-old that doesn't really know what I'm doing, then they're going to want to vote me out and I'm probably going to have to win out."
Hmm.
That's what I said in my Meet Me video, and that is what ended up happening. It was pretty much just a combination of me wanting to be everyone's friend while at the same time everybody was scared of me. Um, I wanted to just be, like a power player without being a power player in
Hmm.
that sense. I feel like in the very beginning of the game, I did have a lot of like social up here, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I felt like I was always in the core of everything. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be in the core, but never at the very front of it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? So yeah, I wanted to be like a front player, but not the front player, and then become the front player, if that makes sense.
So did you play down your knowledge of Survivor in the game and everything then?
Yeah, it was definitely hard for me sometimes. I tried to play down. My mom told me not to do that. She's like, do not pretend that you're stupid because they will see through it. And I was like, no, it's gonna be fine. So I played like I played it a little bit down, but I did tell them like I was like, hey, I host orgs. I am no survivor. I've been watching my whole life, stuff like
Hmm.
that, like the basic super fan kind of thing like that. But I didn't tell them like how in depth I've actually thought every single scenario out and how much I'm thinking about every single thing they can do every second. And I'm like, yeah. So I try to play it down a little bit without playing it down, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I tried a little bit, but not too much.
So you get to the game. You're blindfolded for an hour, maybe more, maybe
Like
less.
3. I
Yeah,
went
it could
for
be a while depending on when you get there. The blindfolds are taken off, and you can see the rest of the cast. What's your reaction?
I just saw a lot of older people. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I am small. I'm going first." And that was kind of my initial thought. I was so stressed out. And then when Jaira asked the question to the other Braden, I was like, "Oh god, there's two of us now." Because like that's usually a thing. You're either best friends. It's either Braden squared or Braden squares off. You know what I mean? Like it's
Hmm.
there's no in between. So that stressed me out. And then I saw everybody was like older than me and definitely looked very intimidating. I was very intimidated, but I
Hmm.
knew that I just had to like keep my head down and go into that first challenge. I was like, gotta be social, gotta be social, gotta be social. So
Hmm.
I definitely had to get past those nerves a little bit, but it was very intimidating.
Were there any players you knew or recognized going at the start?
No, I hadn't done too much homework, which was probably not a good thing, but probably a good thing at the same time because it had me. I was able to make relationships that people told me that I shouldn't have had,
Hmm.
and it worked out for me. So
Hmm.
I think not doing my homework helped me, but it didn't help me at the same time. I just saw a lot of like the big thing. I was like, oh my gosh, big guys help. I was like, yeah.
So talk to me about the Sequantlan tribe, right? Because well, actually, let's first talk about the fact that the season is kind of a returnees versus new players in a sense, right? Two tribes of 8. Each tribe has 3 returning players. Your tribe has Kevin, Andrew, and Taylor St. Louis.
I loved all three of them. I loved them so much. I love the whole Kwantlen tribe just to get that out of the way. We were so much more like kumbaya than Semiamu was. But specifically just like the three of them were probably like especially like the first 2 days like very very high up on my list. I didn't really care that it was newbies and
Hmm.
vets like it didn't really matter to me. I just wanted to get along with who I could get along with and make alliances however it would have worked out. If it was a 5-3 against the vets, it would have been a 5-3 against the vets. But I was open to whatever. The returnee thing didn't really bother me at all.
Um, do you remember any thoughts or reactions just to seeing the other members of your tribe,
Just like all of them.
or just any quick takes on individual players in your tribe?
No, I saw Andrew right away trying to be very social with everybody. I was like, oh, this guy's a game player. Taylor was very nice. I really wanted to get along with CJ. He was so
Hmm.
sweet, and I could see he was kind of like intimidated as well. And I was like, oh, me too, buddy. Come here. So that was like those were like my original. Um, yeah, I just kind of looked at a couple of people and I was like, well, I can get along with you. I won't get along with you. Um, yeah, just trying to judge books by covers. If that
So the very first challenge is that Caveman Brawl, where you're basically playing Steal the Bacon, but with your luggage, right? And I believe you end up with your luggage at the end
I
of this.
did, yeah.
Talk me through this challenge for you.
So not only was I very intimidated walking into the challenge, Jira grabs my bag first. He's like, "Hey, you're going first." I'm like, "Oh no, please don't do this to me." So he puts my bag in the middle of this field, and he's like, "Okay, I'm gonna explain what's going on now with your bag." And I'm like, "Okay." So he's like, "You're gonna fight. It's steal the bacon, but with your bag." And I was like, "Why me?" Um, And then I'm partnered up with CJ, and I was like, oh yeah, buddy, we're gonna kill this. And then we were up against, it was Jenny and Jess on the other
Mhm.
side. Um, one of us gave Jess a bloody nose, and some bruises. I think it was me. I can't remember. I was too busy, like, clutched onto my bag for my life. I was like, I'm not going without this. So I just, yeah, I tried to get out of there as fast as I could, and I just kind of tried to grab it in my bag. That was my strategy. I wanted to get like on it and hug
Mhm.
it, and then just like, caterpillar my way over to the mats. And it worked out. CJ was helping rip them off of me as I was like dragging myself across the ground. It was such a fun challenge. And then since Jess had like the bloody nose, I was first and then also last, and I just gave her her bag because I didn't
Mhm.
want to, you know, didn't want to be mean after like breaking her nose. So.
So that first night, right? You have your most of your tribe has their bags, right? Because your tribe is very successful, but you don't have your sleeping bag. So talk me through that. Just that end of the first day. Who were you talking to? Who were you like really jabbing with? And how was that first night?
So the oddly enough, the first night I was very, very skeptical of Will. Um, he was walking off to the forest, kind of doing his own thing. I was like, this guy's looking for an idol. There was like the BC dollars.
Hmm.
That so people were always like looking around. That's how I managed to find the idol without anybody realizing. I was like, oh, maybe it's on top of this big stump. Climbed on top of the stump, look down. There's a little red thing. I was like, okay, so I pretended to fall off the stump and I stuffed it in my pants as I fell. Um, Genius. Um, but no, I was really gelling with Taylor on the first night. What I wanted to do coming into the game was have like a number one kind of
Hmm.
scenario. And Taylor was like very, very welcoming, and I was like, yep, it's gonna be you. So I wanted to have a number one, not in a sense to stick with through the entire game, but just somebody that I could be very close with in the beginning and maybe to the end. Just kind of wanted to play it out from there. Jamie was talking to me on the first day about how he coaches kids in basketball my age. And I was like, oh, that's so sweet. He's like, I just feel like such a connection with you because this is the people I'm around normally. I was like, perfect. Kevin was very sweet. Andrew and I were having our little bro thing already. So
Hmm.
CJ and I had a little conversation. It was like everything was going pretty well. Um, yeah, it was very, very relaxed, surprisingly, knowing that we had to vote each other out. But it was very relaxed, and we all got along very well on the first day.
Talk to me about your philosophy regarding idols. You never told a single person about your idol, right?
Yeah, so the whole thing about the idol was I could not tell a soul. There were so many moments where I was so close to telling, like, especially Jamie, because I felt so comfortable with him. But I was like, nope, if he knows I have this, he's gonna try and use it as a shield. Because if you tell somebody about an idol, if you tell somebody that you have safety, that is so much more of a reason for them to want to put votes on you or let
Hmm.
votes get on you. You know what I mean? Because there was a couple people that wanted to protect me in the beginning of the game. They're like, if my name came up, they're like, nope, not happening. He's gonna go home. He doesn't
Hmm.
have anything. If I had told people I had an idol, they'd be like, okay, maybe that can work out. And they'd be like going to their confessional. They'd be like, okay, so he's got this idol, so maybe we can flush the idol on this vote. Like I didn't want to deal with that. So having nobody know was just like, it's also probably just the smartest thing to do to keep it to yourself because there's that like surprise factor and there's that only you know about it. You can save yourself at
Hmm.
any point if you know you're in danger. Because if you have also if you have an idol, I've noticed this in orgs, if you have an idol, people aren't going to tell you you're getting votes. You know what I mean? People aren't going to come over to you and be like, hey, that you might be the vote tonight, you might want to start talking to people. They just be like, okay, well, we can just use his idol. I'll tell him right before tribal and we can flush it anyways and get the target out. You know what I mean? It's just like that the social power that an idol has just makes it go way down because people aren't going to want to tell you things because they want to get the idol out of the game, if that
Hmm.
makes sense. So telling nobody is probably just the smartest thing to do. You can whip it out at any time, be like, hey, look, this can save us. So yeah.
Um, that first night, did you sleep at all?
Not much, not much. It was definitely the worst night out of all of them. Um, I yeah, we laid down when the sun went, like maybe like 2 hours after the sun went down because we hadn't fully understood it yet.
Hmm.
We were all talking and we were just having like a conversation at the mat. People were doing confessionals in the dark, and so it was probably around midnight when people actually started to lay down. And then after that, I was just like I had a headache And so I was just kind of staring up at the sky, and I was like, oh, this sucks. I'm going to hate every single night out here. Why did I do this? And I probably stayed up until like probably like 4 in the morning. It was like little moments where I would like phase in and out of sleep, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it was like that. It was definitely really tough. But I probably got like 2-3 hours of sleep at the end of it, and then woke up because the sun was beaming on my face and it was really hot. So it wasn't the best sleep.
So, at the beginning of the next day, you learn about the twist of the season, the Island of Ages, and because your tribe has to select one person to go to the island, and your tribe selects Taylor St. Louis. Um, Talk me through your thoughts around this twist, especially when Taylor comes back and informs you what happened.
I'm pretty sure our thought process with selecting Taylor was like, oh, it could be like something where you have to like barter with the other tribe about something, or like talk about who gets the sleeping bags or something like that. Taylor's a good talker. Maybe she's got some, being a vet. Maybe it'll be another vet coming in. It was
Hmm.
Stevie, so we were correct. But yeah, it was stressful. I was like, okay, this could be awesome or really not awesome. It made me think that there was gonna be like punishments, like maybe like a Pandora's box kind of thing,
Hmm.
or I don't know. I felt most comfortable with Taylor at that moment, so I felt like whatever happened, I would know the truth of it. So I wasn't very against selecting her, and a lot of people weren't either. So I don't know. It was a weird twist that kind of stressed a couple of us out, but
Hmm.
it ended up being pretty fun.
So, when Taylor came back and told you what happened, did you have any reason not to leave her?
No, we just kind of said, "Oh, okay, whatever. They can have that, sure." That's kind of how it always was on Quanlan. People would come back, tell their story, and be like, "Oh, okay," and then that's it.
So you then have two reward challenges, right? And the first one's a survivor mixer, and the next one's kind of a multi-step challenge called Precious Stones. I don't recall the exact details. Your tribe wins the mixer, but then loses the next reward challenge.
Yeah. The first one was like the box one. I'm pretty sure,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, the box whenever has items in it, you're trying. It's kind of like Go Fish in a
Yeah,
sense.
that was a lot of fun. We had the only liar. Taylor said she had a fork or something like that. She's like, "I'm gonna tell him we have a fork." I was like, "Okay, you do that." Didn't know that was against the rules or not, so I was just like, "Do your thing." Yeah, we had a really good challenge on that one. I got all 3 of my items, so I felt pretty
Hmm.
good about that. Yeah, it was very interesting. It was also kind of intimidating. Everybody's standing in a line. You have to walk up to this little mat in the middle and be like, do you have this?" Yeah, it was stressful, but it was fun. And the second one, was that the marbles one?
Yeah.
That that made us really angry because we thought we had it right,
Hmm.
because we had such a lead, and then I don't know what happened. I think we were just slower on the tube part. I think that's what
Hmm.
ended up happening. They were faster on the tube part. We were slower, but we were faster on everything else. I don't know. I thought that somebody had taken the marble, dropped it on the ground, and then because there was one of the cones that were still up, so we were like,
Hmm.
oh, they still have one. What is happening? So then they knocked it over. They were like running, rummaging around in the grass, and then picked it up. That's what I thought. I thought they picked it up, walked over, and they're like, "Oh no, it's right here. I found it. Don't worry." So we were like really mad about that. And then after that, Gyro was like, "Oh, and there's pizza, by the way." And we were just, yeah, that was like it brought us together more because we got to go
Hmm.
home and complain
Hmm.
and just kind of like yell at the other tribe as a team by ourselves. Um, it was fun. It was a good bonding moment, but it definitely would have been nice to have that pizza. So
And then you finish out that first day with your first immunity challenge.
right, that was. Hold on,
It's the one that this is the one, the Six Kingdoms challenge that ends with the tree puzzle that I know Jamie was doing. I can't remember what you were doing this challenge
Oh,
though.
the ones with the dominoes.
Yes.
Yeah, so they had this one where it had to stack dominoes like all the way up to a stool or something like
Hmm.
that. There was like, so you were running lines and then running something over, stacking the dominoes, and then I had to put the dominoes in an order and then knock
Gotcha.
them
Because
over.
Will from the other tribe was doing that too.
Yeah. So Will had this disadvantage where the other tribe got to pick what he did
Hmm.
in the challenge, and they made him do the one that I wanted to do because I have
Hmm.
got like kind of steady hands. Maybe not right now, but I have kind of steady hands. I was like, yeah, I can do the stacking one. That sounds like so much fun. And then they picked Will, and I was like, yeah, well, I'll do the other domino one. Um, we had a really good lead because Andrew did good on the sprints, and then Will beat. I think it was Austin. I'm not sure who was on the other side.
I don't
Will
recall the
will
details
beat
either.
whoever was on the other side by like a couple of minutes, and then I did the dominoes first try. I was like, this is I hope I get the episode title for this episode because I stacked all my dominoes. I'm like, camera, come here. I go, this is what the blue team's about to do after this immunity challenge. I knock it over. They fall like dominoes. Perfect. Works out. We move on, and then we win. It was perfect. It was so great to have the first immunity because like
Hmm.
every single one of us, like a lot of the people on our tribe were from like Ontario or like farther away, like
Hmm.
CJ's Victoria. There's a couple people from like farther that way. So we none of us wanted to be the first one to go. And obviously you don't want to be the first one to go anyways, but that it was very, very reassuring to me because going in there, I felt like I'd either be one of the first three out or one of the last three out or win. That was kind of my thing that I said. Because I was like, they're either gonna look at me as this unuseful kid who's 17 and should not be here, or they're gonna be like, this guy's my best friend. I want to beat him. Oh wait, no, I can't do that anymore, and then vote me out at the end. So knowing that I wouldn't be first out, I was very proud. I was very happy. Um, it was very, very reassuring. And then it just really brought our tribe together. That night was like we had like a puppet show where we had like our flashlight on the tree, and Jamie was like, "Hi, I'm a bunny," and then like the other bunny would. It was hilarious. I really wish there was a camera there. So we had like a good 2 hours where we just didn't stop laughing, and like all of our stomachs hurt. It was like that was probably the best night out there because it was like the calm before the storm, if that makes sense. It was very nice.
So I forgot to talk about. So before that first immunity challenge, Will went to the island of Aegis, and he comes back and he tells you a story, and you didn't have any doubts in what he was telling you.
No, he told us about we ended up finding out later that he lied a little bit about it. It was
Hmm.
this thing where he had to pick a couple of disadvantages, and if he picked more, then it was something good or some I don't remember what it
Yeah,
was, but
he
he hmm?
he got the mutiny advantage.
Right, right. He got the mutiny advantage. He showed us the mutiny advantage. Actually, I thought that was whatever. He showed us the mutiny advantage. He's like, "This is what I got. I also have these disadvantages. I can't play in the challenge or something like, or they can choose my spot in the challenge. I can't vote or something like that." And then
Hmm.
another one. But we ended up finding out later it was two penalty votes. Very, very smart of him not to say anything about that. Um, yeah, so he had a couple of disadvantages. We didn't think anything of it because he told us a lot of the bad stuff and then
Hmm.
also told us the good thing. So we are just like, okay, awesome, thanks, Will.
Hmm.
That's very great. Thank you for being honest, kind of thing. So
So at the end of the second night, did you have any formal alliances happening, or who did you feel comfortable with and were working with?
day two was the deal day. I had originally Taylor and I had a conversation. We shook hands. We're like, hey, this is final two. Andrew comes up to me. He's like, dude, I've been feeling very good vibes from you. I really want to work with you. Shook my hand. He's like, final two. Jamie comes up to me. He's like, hey, final two, buddy. I'm like, perfect. I had three different people that day come up to me and they were like, okay, we're going final two. It's gonna be great. I'm like, perfect, perfect. Sounds great. You
Mhm.
take me to final two. Um, so that was the day of the deals for me. It was a very good day. I think that was the day where I really felt socially like set within my tribe. We kind of had figured out that Evelyn would be the first one to go
Mhm.
because she was really complaining. She didn't really want to be there, and we were just like, okay, this will be an easy vote, or whatever, we can do that. So everybody was feeling pretty good. We kind of felt like CJ was kind of on the same little boat at that point, so I felt like I wouldn't be one of the first three out, and I felt really socially in with a lot of people because it was like Jamie Taylor and I were like a good three at the front. There was Andrew and Kevin were close. I was close with Andrew, which made me closer with Kevin. And then Will was also there. Will was like this like he was awesome. I love Will. Will was there too, and he was very, very like talking to me, and he was talking about other people, and he also felt like I felt really good with everybody at
Mhm.
that point. So day two was definitely the day that I felt probably most comfortable.
If you had to pick the, if you had to vote out, if you ended up having to need to vote out three people from that tribe, at that point, which three would you want to vote out?
The way so completely contradicting to like what I felt or like maybe the next day even
Mhm.
it would have been Evelyn, CJ, and probably Will
Mhm.
because at that point it was like Evelyn and CJ were like, we kind of figured out like they were gonna be the first two to go. As unfortunate as that was, I didn't want to vote up CJ. He was like, I as I said before, him and I were like very alike at the beginning of the game, and I was like, this is my buddy right here. I don't want to vote him out. But it kind of just how it happened. It was Evelyn, CJ, and then Will had kind of been like the big thing that I noticed, and I pointed it out to a couple of people, was he was always looking for stuff. Like he was always like, he felt like this lone wolf that was like always in the forest, and he was like doing his own thing, and he was looking for stuff all the time. And I was like, this stresses me out. And so that was kind of how I was able to be like, what if he has the idol? And people didn't think I had the idol. So I was like, perfect. So that was kind of just how I felt at that moment. Probably the next day it completely changed. It did change the next day, but yeah, that was probably how I was feeling about it at that point.
Were you worried about appearing too tight or too close to Taylor?
Yes and no. Like yes, because like obviously duos are kind of scary, but at the same time I was kind of playing it like, hi, I'm kind of scared, please just like hold me kind of thing. Oh boy. Sorry, my dogs are just like
Doing their own thing.
Yeah, it was something that Jamie actually came up to me. He's like, dude, you gotta disassociate a little bit. And I was like, I know what I'm doing, it's fine, I'll do that. So I kind of tried to like distance a little bit at the same time, but at the same time I was like, I need to really nail this relationship, you know what I mean? Like we also really got along. I really liked their vibe, so I didn't really want to disassociate. At the same time, so we were like best friends, and so I was like, this is just, I'm gonna keep doing this. If I have to disassociate, I'll disassociate. So people were telling me that I probably should have, and I kind of did, but not too much. I was a little bit worried about it, but at the same time.
So at the start of the third day, the next Island of Ages requires both tribes to, I believe, pick a person to attend. And you end up getting picked from your tribe to go attend. And this is you and Austin handling essentially a prisoner's dilemma idol.
Yeah.
Walk me through what happened here.
So we walk up, we're standing kind of in front of like the bathrooms, and I was like, hey man, how's it going? Because Austin was somebody that like, I liked, just seeing him from like the other challenges and stuff. I was like, I want to work with this guy. This guy's cool. He's gonna make the merge. I know that. So I was trying to nail that relationship at the beginning. I was kind of talking to him a little bit about that. He's like, yeah, man, you seem really cool. Whatever this is, we should talk about it and make sure it benefits both of us. I was like, okay. And we walk in, it's prisoner's dilemma. I was like, okay, perfect. That's exactly what we were talking about. And then I kind of just like, I gave him like a 10-second, like, I was like, dude, this is stupid if we go against each other here. I'm going to tell everybody if you get the idol. You're going to tell everybody if I get the idol. Why would you do that to yourself? It's very stupid. Just, we'll share it. We'll come back together at merge. We're both making it. Whatever. Jared had also listed out how if you share and the other person steals, you lose your vote. It was also, if you both steal, you both get a penalty vote. And if you both share, then you both get a piece of the idol. So I was like, looking at that, stealing and being wrong is like the worst thing that can happen. I don't want a penalty vote. I want 0 votes against me. You know what I mean? Like getting a penalty vote is just something that you never ever want. Because you gotta say something about it. You know what I mean? So I was like, if I share and this guy screws me over, I, 1, get good information. I can rat him out, tell everybody he's got an idol. 2, I only lose my vote, and Evelyn's going to be the first vote anyways, so I wasn't very concerned about it. And 3, he's just somebody that I guess I can't work with in the future if he does this to me. So I was like, every single scenario here, sharing is the best option. He like picked his little paper up before I picked mine up. I could see the L on the end of it. I was like, oh, this guy. So I picked up my share anyways. I was like, okay, whatever. Turned it around. Steal share. I was like, you know what? That's fine. He tells me this BS story. Is like, dude, I need this so bad. They just voted out Stevie. This is awful. It's such a bad scenario. I was like, okay, whatever. You take it, man. I'll see you later. I didn't really care because I also had one in my pocket. So I was like, you know what? Maybe I'll get power hungry with 2. Maybe this is for the best. I don't know. I just felt like sharing was like the best option no matter what. And I explained that entire like deal to my tribe and like, you made the right decision. That was great. Thanks for telling us about his idol. We're going to fuck him over in the merge kind of thing. So that was kind of, yeah.
So a couple questions about this. So had you not already have a hidden immediate idol, would that have changed how you approach that dilemma?
Probably not. I kind of forgot about it. at that moment because I was too like, wow, this is crazy kind of thing. So I just like I'm somebody who's very like strategical in like everything that I do. I try and weigh out every single option and what could happen. And I was like, if I steal and this is bad, I don't want a penalty vote. I don't want to be maybe like an option to go home. So that was number one for me, was even if I don't have an idol, I cannot get votes. I do not want to be on I do not want my name on the chopping block whatsoever in these early stages of the game. So automatically that was me kind of just being like, I'm gonna share whatever. If this guy screws me over, so be it. I just thought a public idol would be stupid as well, because I had heard stories already previously about what happened to Kevin, and how everybody was like enemy number one, and that kind of also happened to Austin. So
Well,
I guess it worked out in my favor.
because I remember your tribe actually expressly talked about the scenario of what happens if you go and there is another prisoner's dilemma idol. What should you do in that situation? I remember hearing that like in the feeds, like, oh man, they'll be ready for this.
Yeah. It was something that we had talked a little bit about, and I was like, I have no idea what this means. I've never seen this before. So yeah, it was ironic. And I try to make the best decision I could.
So was Austin dead to you after this?
No, I knew that I couldn't trust him just by kind of looking at him. You know what I mean? Like you can just tell when somebody's gonna lie to you, or when like, because I do this thing where I look at somebody's face like extremely, and like any sudden movement on their face, I can tell they're about to lie to me. You know what I mean? So I could kind of tell that he was lying to me, just the way he was talking to me. I was like, whatever. I shook his hand afterwards after he took the idol from me. I was like, dude, if you're really in this bad situation, I'll be here at Merge. You'll be there at Merge. You've got an idol now, so I'll see you later. We can maybe talk. He was the first person I talked to in the Merge as well. He's like, dude, I'm so sorry. I made it. Let's do this thing. And I was like, okay, whatever. I knew that I couldn't trust him as far as I could throw him. And I don't work out. I probably couldn't throw him very far. So, yeah, I knew that I couldn't really trust him, but if I needed an ally and he was that desperate, I wanted to leave that option open. So I didn't want to be too like, this is completely cut off kind of a thing.
Well, it sounds like the most of your other tribe kind of accepted the story that Austin gave to you, but how skeptical were you of that story at the time?
What do you mean?
His story is like, hey, Stevie just got voted out. It's the wrong set of numbers. I need this idol. Like, did any part of you believe that story at the time?
I originally really believed it because he seemed very genuine about it, and I explained that to my tribe. I was like, he seemed really genuine about it. I don't think he's lying too much. He's probably in a bad situation, but I don't think it's because he was on the wrong side of the numbers. Maybe because he was on the right side of the numbers and people are now mad at him for something he did. And I found out later he was like really chaotic in that first vote, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure.
He cast his vote for Joanna because he refused to vote for Stevie, but he was fine with Stevie going out.
Right. So it wasn't a lie, but it was a lie at the same time. I mean, I believed it, but I also had my skeptics about it because I was like, this guy seems like he'll lie to my face. So
now that we're here and looking back on that moment, is there anything you think you should have done differently when approaching that situation?
I don't think so. I think I played it perfectly, and a lot of people told me that I played it really perfectly. I think I looked out for myself first, kept my options open, and also had a lot of good knowledge in the game that people were wanting from me and wanting to talk to me about. So I think it upped me socially as well. So I think there was like 3 big things that it benefited me for. So I think I played it pretty well.
Did you tell your tribe that you lost your vote?
I told them that I'm pretty sure I told them I had a penalty vote, actually.
Okay.
I'm not sure which one I said. I was kind of confused. I think I told them I lost my vote.
Okay.
But they forgot about it when it came time to vote. So okay, perfect, whatever.
So
yeah.
We then go to a gross food hot pursuit challenge, and this does not end good at all for your tribe. Were you one of the runners for your tribe?
Yeah, I was at the front.
Yeah, and so you will, and I forget who the third person running for you. You all get caught pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was like we did really good on the first lap. I am really good at running. That's like one of my top things I like to do. Like I play sports and I do track, and so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll do running. This is a piece of cake. If it was a solo challenge, I feel like I could have won, but there was at a point where Will was like, dude, I can't do this anymore, and then Evelyn was kind of like, I'm tired, And then we just kind of like slowed down a little bit because Will was like, we got to go a little bit slower. I'm not able to run as fast as you. I was like, okay, that's fine. We'll run a little bit slower. We just got to sprint at some parts, pace ourselves well. And it just came to a point where we just kind of stopped because I was like, you know what, it's fine. I'm not gonna drag these people and let them hurt themselves. So it was whatever. I thought we lost at that point, but then it was also like they had a couple minutes to eat, and if they couldn't eat it in that time, then we could start eating. And I was like, okay, well,
10-minute
that's
grace
perfect.
period.
Yeah. So I was like, oh, maybe that'll happen. It was hilarious. Jamie was doing his puke noises, trying to get them to throw up, and it was really funny. I think it was a fun challenge. We had
Yeah, according to Will, you're being too gracious. Will said that he thought he was about to collapse and die during that running part. So
it was fun. It was fun. I didn't want anybody to get hurt. I didn't want to drag anybody. So I was like, okay, it's fine. It's fine. So we stopped, and then it was ketamine. The horse didn't do too well for us. That was so much fun making that horse, by the way. We loved that. We had so much fun. And then they ended up winning. I think it was Jenny at the last one or something like that. And then Jamie was making the puke noises. They almost threw up. And then after the challenge, I walked over to is Jess and Jenny at the water, and I was like, I was like, guys, that was amazing. You are badass. You know, trying to insert myself in socially already. I was like, that was awesome, you guys. Great job. Well done. So I feel like they liked me from that. And then it was also like, I'm pretty sure that same day that they both swapped onto my tribe. So I was like, oh, luck. Yeah, it was a fun challenge, but at the same time we lost, and so we were like, okay, this is gonna suck. But we all kind of knew it was gonna happen anyways.
Yeah. So. Was there any major strategy happening? Because at this point, I think Evelyn had been pretty clear, like, if we lose, vote me first.
Yeah, so we walked back to camp, and we were standing on our little square because we've been kicked out of our other tribe camp already. So we're standing on our little camping square, all of us, and then we were just kind of standing there silently. I remember specifically, I was like, well, time for the fun part, guys. And then it was like, I'm pretty sure it was Andrew was like, Evelyn, can we go talk for a second? I was like, what? Why? I thought we were all voting her out. So I was like, Andrew, what the hell are you doing? I thought he was like gonna start some scheming. So I pulled a couple people aside. I was like, oh, it's starting. This game is starting. And then they walk back over to our group. Evelyn goes, yeah, I kind of just like don't want to be here anymore. And we're like, oh, well, that was easy. And Andrew was like, yeah, I pulled her aside because she told me earlier she kind of wanted to quit and just wanted to recheck with her, make sure it was okay before we did this. And then it was kind of that. She was like, yep, I'm done. You guys can vote me out tonight. And then we asked her, we're like, what do you want to do in your last 2 hours of the game? Because we had like 2 hours till tribal. And so she's like, I don't know, let's just hang out, play some games, have fun. So we just like hung out as a tribe, bonded more. Then we went to tribal. And we had this little bit, me and Andrew. Andrew was like, well, actually, I'd heard Braden saying my name to Taylor and whatever. And I was like, we had this little bit where they were presenting. And I was like, you know what, Andrew? I think we should vote for Taylor. And then it was like, yeah. And then we turned around. We're like, actually, no, yeah, we're all voting Evelyn. It's game over. So, yeah.
So Evelyn's voted out. It ends up being a 5-2-1 vote. Evelyn cast her vote for Andrew. And then you see 2 votes for Will appear.
So the way that Gyro revealed them, right, that stressed me out so bad. Will had told, I think it was me and Jamie only, that he had 2 penalty votes, but I completely forgot by then because we were like having fun, you know, doing our own thing. I completely forgot about that. So I saw Andrew's vote first, and then it was Evelyn, and then it was Will. And I was like, guys, we have to talk later. We need to talk. We need, like I said, I think I said it out loud at the tribal. I was like, we need to freaking talk, dude. We need to talk right now. Then it was like Evelyn. I was like, oh, okay. And then Will goes, I can explain. I was like, oh yeah, oops. I think I played it off pretty well. You know, it seemed like I didn't know because I completely forgot. But yeah, that was definitely stressful. I was sitting there at the first tribal. I was like, what if it's just all my name? What if every single one of these say my name on me and these people are just absolutely absurd? So I was really stressed out of that first tribal, but it worked out. A little bit of stress in the air, but it all worked out.
So the next challenge ends up being a touchy subjects challenge. And this is for individual immunity because both tribes are going to tribal council. Taylor ends up winning for your tribe, but your tribe has an interesting tactic where you just kind of write down Taylor's name for a lot of things.
Yeah, it was kind of like the bully Taylor challenge. We all thought it was pretty funny. She was in on it, so it wasn't like actually bullying Taylor, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just like it was a little fun challenge. I threw that so hard, by the way. I was like, I'm gonna just get last place in this challenge. I got last place in that challenge.
Nice.
Um, yeah, I just kind of, I switched a couple of my answers. I didn't vote what I voted for, what I knew people would vote for. So I kind of just joined in late on the Taylor thing, and that's kind of what I told people. I was like, oh, I didn't understand that we were all making fun of Taylor. So yeah, it was a fun challenge, and then it was a lot of laughs, and it was cool to see the dynamic on the other tribe as well a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were like having fun because we were sitting behind them, we could see what they were all writing, and then Braden kept turning around. And he's like, look at this, guys. So it was funny. We felt like, a little closer with the other tribe, maybe a little bit before a swap.
So this is a much harder tribal council that you're approaching to, right? Because Evelyn's gone. You already kind of mentioned that CJ was likely going to be the second target because,
Yeah,
at least from my appearance in the tribe, it's like you, Jamie, and Taylor were in the center of the tribe, and you had Andrew and Kevin on one end, and you kind of had CJ on the other hand. But it sounds like Will was kind of in the Ontario alliance, and then you were close with Andrew,
yeah.
and so that kind of was leaving, I guess, Kevin and CJ ended up being the vote.
Yeah, it kind of left Kevin and CJ out. We knew that we couldn't vote for Kevin. It was like a little bit of a conversation. We're like, okay, what if we did vote for Kevin? And we're like, no, we can't do that to Andrew. We can't do that because Kevin's a smart guy. We might need him for like if there was like a smart challenge or something like that. We
Mm-hmm.
we want to keep Kevin, and we just kind of felt like CJ was like it was kind of like a weakest link kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Like no hate towards like CJ or anything like
Mm-hmm.
that. We just kind of like we wanted to do it like that where it was just kind of like, okay, this person is getting along like not least with everybody. It was kind of just like everybody had their groups, right? Everybody had their people, and then I think CJ just ended up having the least people. It was just unlucky cards drawn, and so
Mm-hmm.
it was a pretty easy vote. We kind of let him know right before. We were just like, dude, we are so sorry, this is just what's gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen. So we told him before the vote. I told him during tribal too. I was like, I'm really sorry that I have to do this. And I got up and voted, and then it was really hard, but
Mm-hmm.
it was what had to happen for the best of our tribe, and I don't think he was too upset about it. So I think it went over well.
So your tribe's down to 6. Tell me your thoughts on these 5 other players in your tribe at this point in the game.
I definitely felt closest with the 3 people I shook hands with, being Taylor, Jamie, and Andrew. Those were
Mm-hmm.
my main 3. I was like, we are, no matter what, this is us. This is great. And then we also had Kevin on the end of that with Andrew in the mix. And then I also was like, that at this point was when I was like feeling very, very close to Will, because we had like a lot of good conversations about like life and about stuff like that. So I was like really feeling good with Will. So I was kind of pushing the narrative of like it was probably going to be Kevin versus
Mm-hmm.
Will, and it ended up being Kevin versus Will in the next vote. But I really wanted Will to stay. And I think like the vet versus newbies, we'll get into that in a little bit, but like the vet versus newbies thing coming in after the swap was a good incentive to push for Kevin going instead of Will. I just like I wanted Will in because I felt like Will was somebody that would stick to me if I stuck
Mm-hmm.
my neck out for him. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's just kind of that was how I was feeling at that moment.
So the night's not over yet, right? Your rival or potential ally you'll never have, the other Braden, leaves the game.
Hmm.
And then there's a comeback challenge between Stevie, CJ, and David. Of those 3, who do you want to see come back in?
Oh, we are all rooting so hard for CJ. We all wanted CJ to come back so bad because I was like the only person we voted out that was there.
Mm-hmm.
I think worst case scenario, I was like, I don't want Stevie to come back because this guy seems like a good game player. He's a vet. He's probably gonna be close with these people. He might take people away from me on this team, and so we were just kind of like, come on, CJ, let's go. I think he was like 1 point away from winning.
Mm-hmm.
My ranking was like CJ, David, Stevie, because David and I, like before the game, I got moved from my spot when we were blindfolded because David and I were talking too much. We were like laughing and making jokes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I love this guy. And then I got moved. I think it was by
Mm-hmm.
Tyler. He's like, you're coming with me, and I was like, oh, please don't do that. They put me in the sun, and so yeah, I liked David, but I didn't get to talk to him. And
Mm-hmm.
then we all obviously really like CJ, and then Stevie ended up winning, so we were like, oh well, time to adapt. Um, Yeah, so it wasn't too bad. I obviously would have rather the other two. Um, yeah, so
So your tribe swaps. Quantlen 1.0 is no more, and you end up on Quantlen 2.0, and it's an interesting swap. So you end up your initial swap was it's you, Kevin, and Jamie,
mhm.
and from the original Semiahu tribe you have Jess, Brandon, and Jen.
I felt really, really good about it because like Jenny and Jess were two people that I wanted to work with so bad. Like just like in the other challenges, I tried to make small talk and stuff like that. I was like, I
Hmm.
really want to work with these people, and they came over. We got like a little bit of time alone, like the three of us, and I was like, this needs to be something. We need to work together because I was
Hmm.
like really set on working with the two of them. I don't know why. I was just like really, I was like, I want to work with you guys so bad. So
Hmm.
we made like a little like alliance of three thing. I think it was the night before Jamie had told me he worked with Brandon. I was the first person he told. He's like, I see Brandon twice a year for work parties and stuff like that. We go to so we work together. And I was like, that is huge. And then he swaps over to our tribe. I look at Jamie, I'm like, this guy, he's here. So I felt really, really, really good at that moment. It's probably like one of the safest moments
Hmm.
that I felt like in the whole game. And I was like, this is perfect. The whole team wanted to vote off Jenny first, and I was like, I don't know about that. So I kind of felt like a little in the middle. But yeah, I felt really good at the start of the swap.
Who would you have pushed for if not for Jenny?
Uh, Maybe Brandon
Hmm.
or Kevin. Probably
Hmm.
Kevin. I have no idea. I didn't
Hmm.
really think of that. It probably would have been Brandon or Kevin just because I was probably least close to the two of them at that point. Um, yeah.
And how did you know that Will was going to be using his advantage the next
I
day?
kind of had a feeling. I looked at him at the start of the challenge, like the next challenge, like in the next day,
Hmm.
and he looked over because he was like looking at Jamie and I, like switching between looking at the both of us to see what kind of signals we give him.
Hmm.
I went like this. I was like, you don't need it. I guess he took that as come over. He probably thought I was going like this, like come over here, but
Hmm.
um yeah, he ended up using it, and they took Jenny, and I was like, you know what, that's probably for the best. Probably would have voted her out. I want to work with her. It's
Hmm.
totally fine. And then we had very set numbers on our team, so I was feeling really good about myself. But then looking over to the other tribe, I was like, oh god, Taylor, Andrew, you guys are screwed.
Yeah, because I went
Um,
from a 3-3 to a 4-2, lopsided on each side.
mhm. So yeah, it was at that moment where I was kind of like, oh, this could have just screwed everything up for Quantlin going to the merge. So
Well, your tribe ends up winning the first immunity challenge, and also comes with probably the best reward we've ever seen. You have a steak cookout.
it was so good. It was so good. We could like I could only eat like half of my steak. It was so good. We like wrapped up like the bratwurst in like the tin foil, and we're like, we're gonna save this for later. We're gonna eat this tonight. It's gonna be the best. Um, yeah, I could only eat like half of my steak. I was like, my stomach was small by that point.
Hmm.
But it tasted so good, and it was so great to feel that victory. Jamie was in the bathroom when they were like talking about like the reward. Jamie walks out of the bathroom. I run up to him, and they're like, "Are you gonna tell him?" I whisper in his ear. I was like, "We got steak," and he's like, "Oh my god!" Like we freaked out. It was the best. Like that was like probably the best moment. Like
Hmm.
it was so rewarding, and yeah, it was great after not eating for so long. Like yeah.
Well, with Will and your tribe, it seems like the target shifted from potential Jenny to Jess as the first vote, which is also someone that sounds like you wanted to work with.
Yeah. So I think Jess was the relationship that I worked on most during this day.
Hmm.
I played like three chess games with her. We were just like we are kind of by ourselves like the whole time. I was like, I want to get really, really socially in with Jess. I really like her vibe. I really like the way that she was like of like putting herself out. You know what I mean? Like I was just like, this is somebody that I really want to work with. And so I really focused on that relationship that day, and I was like, I really want you to stay in this game. And so I kind of got the information from both sides at that point, like whatever she was doing. She's like, hey, this is kind of what I want to do. This is the way I'm going. She
Hmm.
ended up telling me about her safety without power. I was like, hey, this is perfect. Um, yeah, so I was kind of playing both sides at that point with her and with the rest of the guys in the tribe, um, while also trying to construct something against like um, it was Kevin that went,
Mhm.
right? I was trying to construct something at the same time, between like the Will and the Kevin. So it was good to know, like, have the knowledge and really focus on that relationship, because it did help me out in the long run as well. Jess was one of my favorite people out there, so I felt
Mhm.
good at that point.
I know that prior to the Semamu Tribal Council, there was a lot of discussion over sending a fake idol over to Andrew or Taylor to use. Were you part of that?
Yeah, it was mostly Jamie, but he did tell me a lot about it. It was
Hmm.
like Brandon and I that he was talking to most about it. I think he ended up doing it.
Hmm.
He did send over the idol, and we were told it worked.
Hmm.
I still have no idea what happened to that tribal. I haven't watched it back or anything, but
It was
um,
utter chaos. Let me just put it that way. There's a lot of confusion and a lot of people unsure where they're going, and the Semamu ranks break.
mm, yeah, I just heard it was like, yeah, like you said, utter chaos. So I was like, you know what, we'll keep it. Yep, whatever.
So after that tribal council, where Joanna's voted out, Jen and Jess both go to the Island of Ages. And what happens when Jess comes back?
She was saying something about the newbies, about the vets all working together. They had a big alliance. She was like, Jenny just told me there's a big veterans alliance, and they want me to be a part of it. Like, they want Jess to be a part of it, and we were kind of scared at that point.
Hmm.
So that was something that was like a big push for wanting Kevin out, because we were like, okay, well, if Andrew's a part of this and Taylor's a part of this, we need to really focus on getting the vets out. And
Hmm.
that's when we kind of had the idea. It was between Will and Kevin. Will was the fake name the whole entire time, but we were really making sure that we hit it home with Kevin. He showed Jamie and I a idol clue that he got to the idol that I had already found.
Hmm.
And so I was like, oh, this is perfect. We'll get the idol. So we ran into the forest and it wasn't there. And we're like, oh, what the hell happened? Maybe, well, who has it? What's going on? So it was like a lot of chaos in like the last hour.
Hmm.
But it was like, it was kind of back and forth at the beginning, but then we all kind of just figured out, like, you know what, if this vet alliance is a thing, we need Kevin out. There's
Hmm.
nothing else that we can do, as much as it sucks. It's probably one of the hardest votes of the whole game for me, was voting out Kevin, because he was just like, he didn't do anything wrong, you know what I mean? It was just something that like other people were doing, and we're like, okay, well, statistically this makes the most sense, so this is
Hmm.
something that we have to do. So it was hard, but
Because
that's kind of.
the only solution for him would have been if your tribe won that challenge.
Hmm?
If your tribe had won that challenge instead of losing, and he makes the merge, that's the only solution for him.
Yeah, we kind of felt like, yeah, that's probably what he would have done. We had no idea like what he would have done, because we like, okay, well, if his number one's Andrew's in this alliance, he's definitely flipping on us. We can't keep him any longer.
Were you trying to persuade Jess not to use her safety without power?
I was trying to, because they told me to. They were like, try and sway her not to do this. I don't remember what was happening. I thought I was gonna be voted out or something like that, because I'm paranoid, and I was like, what if it's me, Jess? If you leave right now, this is like the only way that I can stay if you don't leave, because I need your vote to stay, or something like that. I don't remember what the hell was going through my head. I always thought I was going home at every single tribal, so um I was trying to convince her not to, for like my own reasons, but they also
Hmm.
wanted me to convince her so we could vote her out and lie to her. Which is something that I was like, okay, I don't really want to do that. But it was kind of like a double-edged sword, because I was like, something's going on in my brain, but also they want me to do this. Perfect, works out. But she ended up using it anyways. I told her at the very end, I was like, you need to use this. You're going home, because I kind of figured out, like, okay, I'm safe. It'll be Kevin. I need to just like tell her that she needs to use it. So I pulled her
Hmm.
aside like probably 5 minutes before tribal. I was like, you need to use this or you're
Hmm.
going home. So she's like, okay, and uses it, and we vote out Kevin. And yeah.
So that night, you end of day four, you end up merging. And so, walk me through your thoughts on this 10-person merge tribe.
I was so hyped to get to the merge. That was my goal. Like, I was like, if I make the merge, I'm golden. That's what I want to do in this game. Get to the individual party from the first merge at boot, whatever. So I was feeling very great. I had a spot over with, like, it was like Taylor and Jenny were sitting together, like, come over here, come sit with us. I was like, okay, perfect, that's great. So I went and sat with them. They gave me this food. There's 4 McDonald's burgers. I don't like condiments on my food. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna give these out to people, be nice guy. Because there's a couple of people that like barely got anything. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just give you guys my burgers, whatever, have them. And then I ate the fries that were in there. Stupidly, I didn't check the bottom of my bag. Like, number one thing you do in Survivor, you check the bottom of the bag. You check everything at the food reward. It's always at the
Mm-hmm.
merge food reward. And I just completely forgot. Apparently, there was the will steal a vote in the bottom of my bag, and I completely forgot about it. And I was like, oh, like hearing that later, I felt like such an idiot. I mean, like it worked out anyways. Like I didn't end up needing it, but
Mm-hmm.
like it would have been nice to have that extra safety net. I wonder what I would have done, like how I would have felt,
Mm-hmm.
like because I probably would have felt like I had a lot of power and I might have gotten power hungry. I have no idea. So maybe it's best that I missed it, but like at the same time, I feel like an idiot. So yeah.
Because it's an interesting merge, right? Because you have 5 original Quantlen, 5 original Semiamu, you have 5 Semiami 2.0, 5 Quantlen 2.0, 5 returnee players, 5 new players, right? It's a lot of even splits happening around.
It was very, very even. At that point, we kind of felt like it was going to be vets versus newbies. That was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the feel after the Kevin vote, especially. That was kind of what we felt was going to happen. But at the same time, I was looking at it from a perspective of like, okay, if it's still original Quantlen, we now have Brandon kind of thing. Like I always felt like it was a 6-4 in favor of whatever side I was on. Like I felt really good about it unless it was like vets versus newbies. But at the same time, I felt like I could get in with the vets because of my relationships with Taylor, Andrew, kind of Jenny at that point. So I was like, I think I'm good no matter what, but I don't really want it to go that way. So it was definitely like stressful trying to go over all the scenarios, and my brain was moving at a million miles an hour that
Mm-hmm.
night, especially with all the conversations that we had. Like I went off with Austin, and I went off with Andrew and Taylor. They're like, "This is what happened. We are still with you guys. Don't worry." I was like, "I don't buy that for a second." Um, Went off with I think it was Will for a bit, maybe Jamie. Like I think I talked to everybody that night.
Mm-hmm.
I was always gone. And then it was just kind of we got our sleeping arrangements and we all passed out. So it was a hectic night for like the good hour. So
Well, I want to ask about a couple people. So Taylor's a player you were very close with for the first 3 days, and the fourth day you're on different tribes. She's now part of this potential like veterans alliance. Did you? What was your relationship with her at this point in the merge? At
at
the start of
that
the merge?
point, like the first night, like the nighttime, I was kind of like, okay, because she talked a lot about how close her and Stevie were. I was like, okay, so if he's here, I'm not. That
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. That's kind of how I felt. So I was like, okay, well, he's back in the game. They were just on tribes. They're like feeling great going into the merge. They won immunity. They probably bonded a lot. I feel like that relationship is not going to be as great as it used to be. So I need to work on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't know how I felt. I don't know how she felt about me, maybe, is a better way to put it. I didn't know how she felt about me. I still felt the exact same way. I was like, okay, I still really want to work with you. It's going to be great. Just please don't screw me over. Please don't cut me for somebody else, kind of a thing. So, it was really 50-50. I was like, I don't know how you feel about me at this
Mm-hmm.
point. But I wanted to believe, but at the same time, we really, really felt like there was vets versus newbies.
What about Austin, right? Because Austin previously took that idol from you, kind of burned you in a sense. You probably heard that the idol got played via Stevie.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on that at this point?
He was the first person that I talked to in the merge night because he was like, "Okay, I really need to talk to you." He just kind of tried to nail home like I really like your vibe, dude. Like the thing that he said to absolutely everybody in the game. And after hearing that, the next people I talked to were Taylor and Andrew, and I was like, "Well, he just said all this to me," and they're like, "Okay, he's saying that to absolutely everybody." And I was like, oh, "Okay, well, I don't feel special anymore." So I kind of felt like he was somebody that was gonna be a lone wolf in the merge. I was like, this guy is gonna have no allegiance and he's just gonna try and stir the pots. He probably needs to go as soon as
Mm-hmm.
possible. So I wasn't too fond of Austin at the moment, but I wanted to leave the relationship open just in case my read was wrong.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you about Jamie, because at this point, Jamie has, like you, he's been really in the center of the tribe, calling the shots. He's a big character, right? He's very evidences. I feel like he probably was closest to the heart of your original tribe as you can be.
Yeah.
Um, he has this relationship. He has this very clutch relationship with Brandon, and he has a lot of influence on people. What are your thoughts on him and where you want to go in the game with him at the start of the merge?
So one of the things that I wanted coming into the game was to have somebody that could be the front,
Hmm.
like the front of the magazine. You know what I mean? I wanted him to be the front of the magazine, and I wanted to be the contents inside of it, if that makes sense. So I was like, this person can be a really good shield for me because he's gonna be a big player in the merge. He's got a lot of social power, and he can bring me into that. So I was like, if you are number one and I'm your right hand man, this is gonna go perfectly because one, they're gonna go after you before they're gonna go after me.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I am extremely close with Jamie. I was like, we can go all the way together if this side beats the other side,
Hmm.
kind of a thing. But I didn't want to be the number one like front page story, if that makes sense. So
Hmm.
he was a very good person to have in the merge, and especially being probably at that point the closest person to me out there. It was definitely nice to have somebody like that. It could be a shield, but also like my complete number one in the game.
Hmm. And I guess my last question is: did you have an idea of what getting the end would look like at that point, like, or what your next couple of moves you wanted to be would be?
I knew that like number one, like it was odd how it worked out. But I was like, number one, Austin, Stevie, they need to go. These are my number one targets. We'll make final eight and then we'll play it out from there, kind of see what happens. So I was like, I need to get Stevie out of here first. That
Hmm.
was my going into the merge. I was like, Stevie needs to go because I need this relationship with Taylor. He is a great player. I can already tell. I need him gone because he's
Hmm.
lovable. He will stay over me 10 out of 10 times. And then Austin at the same time. He's like, this guy is chaotic. I need him to be gone. I can't have him screw everything up socially for me because I feel really good socially. So if he's gone, I feel better. I can sleep at night, kind of a thing. So
Hmm.
those were the two people that I wanted to get out, and that was kind of the way that my brain was thinking because I'm always in game mode. So I was like, I need these two people out, and then we'll kind of play it out from there. I try to play it like 1 or 2 rounds at a time.
Hmm. Well, so then you have your first individual immunity challenge the next morning, and it's the balancing act where you have a cup on your head and you're balancing stuff. You're balancing a ball and a little plate in your hand, and Stevie ends up coming out on top of this challenge.
Yeah, I got second place in that. I was like, I didn't want to win the first one, but then I saw it came down to Stevie and I was like, oh, I need to win this. I can't do this because I wanted him out first. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I wanted him to be the first person out.
You and a lot of
Um,
people
Me and a lot of people?
wanted him out.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's
yeah,
good.
yeah. I think
Um,
because I think Jessica and Brandon, because they previously voted him out, wanted him gone as well. Because I think he
right.
was continuing that his presence, unfortunately, continued to fracture that Samiano tribe. Because you had Jenny was very pro Stevie, but then Jess was very con Stevie, and so was Brandon. Like that, the original Samiami tribe, I don't think could have been united as long as Stevie was still in the game.
Okay. Well, that's good
Yeah,
to know that I
you'll
wasn't the
hear
only
Jess if you listen to Jess. Probably an hour and a half mark, you'll probably hear a lot of her thoughts, like when needs Stevie out, but he won that challenge. So.
Yeah. So it was kind of coming down to like it had been him versus I for like 10 minutes at that point, and we had to go into one leg, and then I picked my like left leg. I don't know why, but then I started like cramping, and then I
Mhm.
just kind of like got to a point where I was like, oh no, and then I like cramped and fell. So I was like, oh no, but it was probably like best that I didn't win that first one because I
Oh,
didn't
you
want people
could
to
have
kind of
like achieved an actual survivor record of 6 individual immunity challenges. How do you live with yourself knowing you'll never have that?
I mean, I still could have it. There's like maybe I'll get invited back in the future or something. Oh. Yeah, it would have been cool, but at the same time, I think if I won that one, people would have started looking at me a lot sooner.
Hmm.
So it was probably best, let him have his thing, and then he's tried to make like an alliance of 5 or something. I don't know. I was in a bunch of alliances at that point. I had a good conversation with Stevie that day, and I was like, okay, maybe I feel a little bit more comfortable.
Hmm.
Um, but then at that point, after the challenge, knowing that Stevie was safe, I was like, okay, we got to nail home the Austin vote then.
Hmm.
And that was kind of my next like plan of action was to
Hmm.
go for Austin.
Now, did you know that Brandon had the original Semiyahu idol and had given it to Jamie?
Yes. So it was the before we voted out Kevin, I was sitting there. It was Jamie and I were sitting in a chair and we were kind of talking about the idols and like where they were. This was the closest I was to showing somebody my idol. It would have been so cool. So it was Jamie and I sitting there in these chairs that production brought over and we stole them because
It's
chairs.
Survivor. You steal everything you can.
Yeah. So Brandon's standing there in front of us. We're talking about the idols. He reaches into his pocket. He's like, okay, well, how's this? And he throws it on Jamie's lap. The idol's sitting right there. There's a blue idol. I was like, what? So I had the red one in my pocket. I almost pulled it out and I was like, okay, well, how about this as well? Because that would have been such a fun moment. You know what I mean? Having like the two idols between the three of us. Yeah, that would have been so cool, but I didn't do it. But knowing he had that, and then I knew that he gave it to Jamie because Jamie had the two, and he was showing me. He's like, I got the fake one, I got the real one. Um, so yeah, I had knowledge of where they all were at that point.
Mm-hmm. Did you know that I guess what would be the minority at the time, do you know that they were targeting Jamie?
Yeah, so it was kind of like I don't know how, but I had my foot in there somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that it was gonna be Jamie. A couple people were telling me. I think it was my relationship with Jess or
Mm-hmm.
Jenny. I don't remember. Somebody told me that it was Jamie on the other side. And I was like, okay, well, you know what? He's got the idols. I think this was the round where he had his big idol moment, like
Mm-hmm.
his like front page, like look at this, guys, I'm a crazy player kind of thing. That was awesome, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was that round. So I kind of figured. I think I might have sparked that a little bit because I told him he was getting votes.
Mm-hmm.
But I was feeling very very confident in the fact that Austin was going to go home because I had confirmed it with a lot of people, and I was playing very hard at that moment, maybe a little too soon, but I was playing very very hard that round.
So Andrew ends up throwing his vote at the Bequester Alliance to prove his loyalty, and he casts his vote for Jen. Talk to me about your relationship with Andrew, because again, we talked about how you were worried that Taylor had gone over to the Returnee Alliance. I suppose you had that same concern with Andrew, considering he's one of the people you had the final two with from the start.
Oh, you froze.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you like cut out for a
Can you hear me
second.
now?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question was, talk about your relationship with Andrew, right? Because you had a final two deal with him to start, but like Taylor, he's a returnee. That he does throw his vote on Jenny at the request for alliance to kind of prove his loyalty here.
Yeah, I can't remember how I felt about it. I feel like it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. You do your thing. You
Mm-hmm.
you play the middle or whatever. Do your thing, dude. Um, I don't really think much of it. I was just kind of like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter kind of thing. I didn't think much of it. I really liked Andrew. Andrew was somebody that I could feel myself going very far with.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of was like, you know what, you do your own thing as long as you're still with me 100%. Do whatever you want, blow your own game up. Who
Mm-hmm.
cares, kind of a thing. So I didn't really think much of it.
So Austin goes out 5-4 to 1. Jamie plays the idol, nullifies 4 votes. All goes as planned.
Yep.
The next round opens up with Will going to the Island of Ages. And what did he tell you when he got back?
I think that was the one where he told us that he got more disadvantages.
Mm-hmm.
So I got this disadvantage list. I can't play in immunity and I can't vote or something like that.
Or I lose a tie.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Lose rocks in a tie or something like that. Yeah. So I was just kind of like, okay, well that's not too much. I don't think you're gonna go into a tie vote when it's 9 people left. So I think you're totally fine. Great choices,
Mm-hmm.
kind of a thing. So he doesn't play in the challenge. I think that was the water one, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had the little candles. You know, to douse everyone else's candles.
Another second place for me. That was a really fun challenge. The main thing, I was standing next to Stevie at the start, and I was like, I'm gonna target this guy without targeting this guy. So I just kind of tried to like move people towards him and then back away. I was like, okay, go over towards Stevie, and then I'll get out of there, kind of a thing. So I was trying to play it where people would go after Stevie. Andrew and Jamie, I think, went after Stevie because it was like the 4 of us left.
Mm-hmm.
Me, Jamie, Stevie, Andrew. In the final 4 of that challenge. And then I think it was Jamie started going for Stevie, and then Andrew kind of double teamed him. I was like, hey guys, I think I said it out loud. I was like, Stevie goes. I don't remember, but Stevie was out, and then Jamie was out, and then I dropped my cup, and then Andrew got me. So yeah, it was a really fun challenge though. I put my blue shirt on right before that challenge. It was the first time I got to wear my awesome blue shirt. I had bought it right before the game. I was like, oh, this is a great shirt. I can't wait to wear it. And then it was soaked. And I was like, oh, I guess I can't wear it anymore. I left it out in the sun for the rest of the game. Yeah. And so Andrew ended up winning that. Don't think it did too much. Maybe it was a little good for him because he threw his vote. Just kind of got people to stop looking at him at that point. But the main thing was Stevie did not win. So.
Mm-hmm. So it ends up being a 6-3 vote against Stevie, with Jen, Taylor, and Steve in minority voting for Brandon. Was there anything notable with the strategy for those votes?
Not entirely. I think it was kind of like a majority thing where we were all kind of like, okay, biggest threat in the game. He doesn't have immunity. We don't know when we can do this again. We don't want him to go too far. He's got a lot of social power. He's a very awesome, loving guy. We don't
Mhm.
want to like. It was kind of just like a no brainer kind of a thing, and I think a lot of people agreed because we ended up flipping like Jess, I think.
Well,
Um,
I think your original five stayed together, and Andrew voted correctly with you all this time.
Right, right. So yeah, it was a good vote. It was kind of like a no brainer, and then I was that point after that vote where it was like, okay, well, I feel good with everybody left in the game. Time to play.
Mhm.
So it was a very very good 2 rounds for me there.
So Andrew and Taylor go to the Island of Ages next, and they come back with a lot of BC bucks.
Yeah. Both of them, I think they said something. I think they said that to the whole tribe. They're like, yeah, we got these gift cards for 1,000. Let's buy some food or something like that.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of like, okay, whatever you do that, sure. I don't think anybody really thought anything of it. A lot of the Aegis visits, people were just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever.
Mhm.
There was obviously like a couple things where people were like, oh, that's huge, but it was just whatever.
Mhm. Taylor also gets the disadvantage played against her at this point.
Yeah, so I realized because she showed me, I think it was just me that she showed originally because she walked off with me and she was like crying. She was like, I can't believe somebody would do this to me. I'm really upset. And I looked at it and it was the exact same disadvantages that Will showed me. And I was like, uh-oh. So she's like, this got played on me by somebody else. I'm just really upset. Who do you think could have done it? And it was just kind of like, okay, well, I told her I was like, I think it might have been Will because he had the exact same disadvantages last round. And she's like, okay, well that maybe makes sense, but I really like Will. I think he said it was because he felt that she was probably going to be the next one to go.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us kind of felt the same. But it was still kind of like, oh, well, it sucks because I don't think any of us knew that he had to play it on somebody until like right before because he said something to Jamie and I'm pretty sure he's like I got to play this on somebody. Who should I play it on? We're just like I don't know what to do, kind of a thing. So yeah, she showed me that and it was just kind of like, oh, that sucks. That's really terrible, especially being at like final 8. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? You go home in a rock. You draw 2 rocks or automatically go home in a tie or something like
Mhm.
that. I don't remember, but yeah, it was shitty. So
Mhm. So at the immunity challenge, it's OTEV. It's you're racing out to find the paradox symbols. How did that challenge go for you?
somebody stole the damn periodic table. I found it was Brandon, but that was like the question of the day was who took the periodic table. He told Will, I'm pretty sure, and
Mhm.
that's how Will got his vote in the end or something like that because he didn't tell anybody. But um, it was dumb because none of us had the thing to study. We were just kind of like, hey, where'd it go? I think I spent like a good 5 minutes looking. I was like, where could it be? Like I was just like looking at everything, looking at all the envelopes and stuff. So then we get to the challenge. I'm like still in high school, so it's like pretty fresh in my memory. Um, so I knew a lot of them, like all of them, like every single one that happened except for maybe one I knew, just like off the top of my head. I
Mhm.
hate science, but it just ended up coming to a point where it was the back left corner. There was a little pile. So I ended up like adding a little bit to the pile. I was like kind of trying to sweep it into there. So there's like a big pile of them there. And then I finished the round, and then we go out for the next round. And there's like 3 of us. There's like me, Jess, Andrew, I think, that ran over to that little
Mhm.
pile. They took the two ones, the correct ones that were there, ran away, and I was like, so then I like frantically looked around. I just didn't find it. I think it was
Mhm.
second out in that challenge. I just could not find the correct ones because there wasn't enough of them. So
Mhm.
yeah, that was a dumb challenge.
So Jenny wins immunity. This ends up probably being one of the most stressful votes for you because this is where Taylor is being targeted. And not only that, you have Jess flipping to Taylor's side, and you have essentially Jess, Taylor, and Jenny all working on you
Yeah,
much more than it seems like other players.
it was specifically me. It kind of got to a point where they had this strategy where they didn't want me to talk to anybody else. So it was like one of them would take me away, and then when somebody else would ask to talk to me, it was like Jamie walked up and he's like, Braden, can I talk to you? And Jenny was like, actually, no, I need to talk to him first, just for like 5 minutes. It took me away. And it was just like a circle that kept repeating, where the girls would take me away and be like, this really, really needs to happen. And then I went over and talked to Andrew. I was like, dude, they're playing me. Like, this is they're trying to get me to vote with them, and then they're just gonna cut me because obviously they're a tight three. This is stupid. Why would I do this? So it was like the whole way through, I knew I was never gonna vote for Andrew. I was like always gonna vote for Taylor, but the way that the girls were talking to me really struck me like emotionally. You know what I mean? That's what they were trying to do. They knew that it was not smarter game wise, so they weren't trying to take that path. They were trying to hit me emotionally, and it almost worked. I was so upset because Taylor had been my best friend for the whole entire game, and I was like, this sucks. Throughout the entire game that I was on tribes with them, I was like, Taylor was right here and Andrew was right here when we were sleeping. You know what I mean? Like, it was like I slept between these two people, and now I gotta pick which one goes and doesn't win. Like, it's like it was a terrible feeling picking between like essentially my two best friends in the game. So it sucked, but I knew, like, I always had like that game mindset, and I knew that I had to play it. Like, I was like, okay, well, if I look like I'm really, really struggling with this decision, they're gonna have sympathy, like, they're gonna have like empathy for me, you know what I mean? Like, they're gonna feel like they can still work with me at the end of the day. It was just a hard decision I had to make. I forced a lot of tears out. A little bit was real. I think there was one time where it was like real tears, and that was like at tribal or something like that. I don't remember. I cried a lot. But I just kept forcing tears out, and I was like, this is the hardest decision I ever have to make. Then I ended up voting for Taylor, and she went, I think it was 5-3. Yeah, it was a really, really tough vote, and it was something that I did not want to do, but I knew in my brain that, like, no matter what, I could not side with the girls because they had each other more than they had me, and I was higher on the totem pole with the guys. So it was just like I had to think with my brain instead of thinking with my heart. And it ended up just I had to vote Taylor. So
it sounds like you were leaning into the emotions of it.
yeah, definitely, because they were very, very comforting, and they're like, don't worry, it's all okay. And I was like, I said to Andrew, I was like, they're doing this to play me emotionally and make me side with them because I feel too bad and it hurts me really bad, and they know exactly what they're doing. So I knew it was a play, but at the same time I really wanted to give into it because I really felt bad. So
Because you seem distraught at tribal council. This is where you have, I think Jenny is right behind you, is leaning on you and whispering to a lot of tribal council.
yeah.
I think Jamie comes over. I think it was Jamie. I can't. Maybe I'm missing out. Who's there as well in your other ear? Like, you had a lot of players leaning on you, making sure that you were going their way.
I got this one tribal question. Somebody got a tribal question. They were like, okay, so what's the tribe dynamic this one? And I put my hand up instead. I was like, I can answer that for you. Basically, I'm a swing vote right now, deciding between Andrew and Taylor who goes home. So it was that I was really straightforward, and it was just kind of like everybody having conversations with me. I had Jenny right behind me. I think it was like Will or Andrew to my left, and then Jamie walked over from the other side. He's like, comes down. He's like, dude, they're playing you right now. You said it to my face. They're playing you. You just got to stay in this. You got to stick straight with what we're doing. You know, it's better for your game. Walks over. And then the one thing that really struck me, and I remember this very clearly, Will, he said this one line. He was like, well, he is choosing between a couple of people, but if you think about it, you're thinking about burning one bridge with somebody versus burning 3 bridges with people, because it was like a side with 3 guys versus burning the bridge with Taylor. And I was like, okay, you know what, that was really wise. That's it for me. So I walked into the voting booth, voted for Taylor. I was like, just got to do what I got to do. Yeah, it was kind of just I was like the main person that episode, I think. So
Is there a world where you shift the vote onto someone else? Like, is it possible you could shift the vote onto Jess versus Taylor?
I don't think so. I think if I tried, it would have blown up in my face or something like that. It was very, very dead set, because I tried to get it off of Andrew. So I was like, well, if you guys can vote for somebody that isn't Andrew, like, I don't know, maybe you vote somebody else on that side, maybe I'll consider it a little bit
Mhm.
more. But Andrew's like one of the closest people to me out here, so I don't really want to do that.
Mhm.
And they're like, no, it's just it has to be this way. It's the only way that it can work. And I'd go over to the other side. It was originally supposed to be Jenny from the other side, but she wanted immunity.
Mhm.
So then it was Taylor, and I was like, oh, this really sucks too. And I was just like, I was trying to get my word in. I was like, guys, can we maybe switch this? Maybe. And then they're just like, no, it has to be this way. And I was like, okay, I guess. So I tried a little bit, but it just like it was not budging no matter what. It had to be between the two of them.
So had Taylor been on your swap tribe, this would have greatly changed the outcome because then you wouldn't have felt like this. You wouldn't have felt like there was a chasm between both of you at this point in the merge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think if she was on the swap tribe, I think things would have been a lot differently. I don't think I would have won the game because I think Kevin would have stayed. I think it would have actually turned into a vets and newbies thing. I think I would have been with the vets, but then maybe gotten like 6th or 5th or something like that because they would have voted me out before they voted each other out, kind of a thing. Stevie probably would have ended up like winning the game. Probably would have been Stevie Taylor final 2. So I think it was probably best the way the things worked out like that. But yeah, it just had to happen as like still early into the game to vote out like somebody that was like my number 1 for a couple of days. Like that hurt, but like it just like it had to happen.
But at this point, like you feel great with Jamie and Will and Andrew's on your side. You've had a good relationship with Jess. I believe this is the point where Jess said like she wrote you off. She's like, he's dead to me after this. Like she felt very burned by the fact that she felt very spurred because you didn't vote with him this round. But you still have a lot of players who you're working with. And so that ends day 5 before we get to the longest day ever. Like looking at the final, I think, 7 at this point. So what do you think you had to do to get to the end?
Final 7, like believe it or not, was the point of the game where I felt my highest, but also my lowest. It was at this point where it was like Jenny and Jess and Brandon weren't mad at me for not voting with them, and also the guys were very ecstatic that I voted with them. So I knew that I had those 3, and then I also had the 4 or the other 3. So I was like, I knew I was in the very middle of the game, and I felt extremely good with this side, extremely good with this side. I ended up making an alliance that day called the Stargazers. It was the night after we voted Taylor, I'm pretty sure, or the same night. It was me, Jenny, Jess, and Andrew. We all laid on this tarp in the middle of the field and looked at the stars and talked about like I think it was like what are they called? Music festivals, like that. We're just like talking about life and like kind of leaving the game brain for a little bit. It was really nice, and we just kind of like we're like, oh, what if we were just an alliance called the Stargazers? So there was like that on top of everything. There was original Quantlin, there was me and Jenny and Jess as a 3, there was Brandon, Jamie, and I, and it was just like I had all these little things, and I felt like I was in the middle of it. Like I felt like the brain inside of all of like the I felt like I was in the very middle of absolutely everything in that point. But then I also knew people were gonna start coming after me at this point. So I was like, okay, so this is where the game really starts for me, because I had not really been looked at yet, because I'm still playing the I'm everyone's best friend. But then I just had to like my hands were forced. You know what I mean? I just had to pick a side. So people are like, okay, we're gonna have to come after this guy, I guess. That was final 7 was where I was like, oh shit, this is game on. So it was that morning. I woke up. Jenny and I went out for like 2 hours just talking, like looking for idols, stuff like that. We saw Jamie, had a good conversation with Jamie. It was just like the tensions were really high, but at the same time not at all. It was such like a over here but at the same time all the way over here kind of a day, especially like that morning. It was intense, but it was really relaxed at the same. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It was like so far one side and so far the other side at the same time. So felt really good but really bad at the same time.
Did you know that Brandon had initially been wanting to flip at that prior tribal council?
Yeah, he had talked a little bit about it, and that was like kind of why I was more debating flipping as well. But he had confirmed it right before the vote with Jamie and I. He's like, guys, I'm not flipping. I'm staying with you guys, kind of a thing. I think that's how it went. He confirmed it like right before the vote, and that's how I knew. I was like, okay, gotta do this no matter what.
At the end of the previous night, you also went to the Island of Ages and competed against Jenny in a challenge where you won 500 BC bucks.
Yeah. So I won the 500 BC bucks. I went back to camp. I told them I won 300, and that was a bad. It was like this was a bad island visit. I only got 300, and I kept 200 for myself. It was at this point. Another reason why I felt very good was because that night, um, and then the morning after, like that night, we had talked about it. Jenny and I had talked about she had a final seven immunity advantage.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was the morning after we walked over. We woke up really early, walked over because I was like, if you wake up first, wake me up, we'll go. If I wake up first, I'll wake you up, we'll go. We wanted to wake up really early and just go out, look for an idol and talk and just like really make sure that relationship is 100%. Kind of sucks because I ended up voting her out first that day. But we walk over to the production thing and she's like, I want to give Braden my final seven immunity advantage. And I was like, perfect.
Without even asking, she gives it to you.
No, I asked her a little bit. It was also me kind of playing the game a little bit because I knew she was the next target for our team. Like for our little alliance, she was the next target. So I was like, okay. So if she doesn't win this and I win this, it leaves our options entirely open. So I'm like, if I'm safe, I don't have to stress because I just had this really stressful tribal council with Taylor. People are going to start looking at me now. If my name's completely off the chopping block and Jenny doesn't have that immunity, it might be absolutely perfect. So she gives that to me. It was like really easy. I was like, hey, can I have it? She's like, yeah, you know what? Sure. And so I was like, okay. So I took that, ended up winning the challenge too. So that was perfect.
Yeah, and so this is the Goblet Balance Challenge. We're on your back, your balance is something in your hand, you have a goblet to keep up on your feet. Was that advantage necessary for you to win?
I think so.
Okay.
It was like I'm like Andrew said this. He's like, I'm not gonna win a hip flexor challenge against a soccer player, and I was like, okay, well, maybe you're right, but at the same time, it hurt really bad because I was exhausted at that point. It was like it was day 6, wasn't
This
it?
is day 6, morning day 6, and you're already exhausted.
Day 6 out there, and I'm like holding this thing up with my hand, and I also have the thing in my foot. The arm was completely fine. It was just the goblet, keeping that off the ground. I had the strategy where I'd put it like completely straight up, and then I would put it like straight out like this as well. And I would just kind of like go back and forth between that. But it hurt really bad at the end. Like it was like Jenny, Andrew, and I left, and I did not know if I could beat them. I think Jenny still could have beat me if she didn't have that like thing where she like touched the ground by accident. I think she could have beaten me, and so that was like stress off my shoulders. And then I talked Andrew into giving it to me. I was like, dude, I really need this right now. You're not in as much of a like hot seat as I am. Can you please give it to me? He's like, yeah, you know what, dude, I'm not gonna win a hip flexor challenge against a soccer player. Might as well just. And so he just dropped, and I won, and it felt great because I was like, I want to come out here and win an immunity challenge against a bunch of adults. You know what I mean? So I felt really good about myself at that point. Little did I know I'd win 5, but you know, I felt really good at that point.
These things.
You know, I felt really good. So that was really nice to have those options open. I was like, okay, Jenny is a possible target now. I'm also not. So that was the main things I wanted to get done, and I did it all in that morning.
And you saw at the beginning of the challenge, Will got the steal vote.
Yeah. So he got that steal vote. A couple people thought it was an idol, but he said something about it afterwards. I don't know. It was kind of got lost in like lost in the wind. But
so hypothetically, if Jenny was immune, who would you have voted for?
I have no idea. I Final 7 with the Stargazers Alliance being a 4, I was kind of wanting to go with that because those were like the 4 people I felt most comfortable going far with. I felt really comfortable with Jamie, obviously, at that point, but I didn't know how far I wanted to go with him because of the fact that he would annihilate me in Final 2. So it was at that point where I started trying to think outside of my original lines and outside of my initial thoughts. So the final 4, the group of 4 with like me, Jenny, Jess, Andrew. We were talking a little bit about voting for Jamie potentially that round. That's what they wanted to do. That's like what the girls wanted to do. And then Andrew was kind of like, I kind of like this idea. I was like, I kind of like it too. I don't know. So that was an option we were weighing. But then it kind of just came to a point where I was like, they're gonna choose each other over me. This is not gonna be good, because they were getting along really well when we were stargazing, talking about all these things that adults do, and I was like, hey guys. They're talking about like music festivals and like stuff like that. And I was like, never done that before. Hey guys, this is great.
Someday.
I love the stars. Yeah. So I don't know. I kind of felt like they might choose each other over me. I also felt really good with the other side and my odds with the other side as well. Um, so that's kind of what the incentive was, towards voting for Jenny instead. But to answer your question, if I didn't vote for her, I think it would have been either Brandon or Jamie at that point.
So ends up being a 5-2 vote. It's really a 4-3, but with a steal vote, it negates Jenny's vote, so we'll cast an extra vote against Jenny. So she goes home 5-2. The next is our last visit to the Island of Ages, your third visit, and this is one everyone goes to, where everyone gets to bid for essentially almost a public immunity idol, right? Because it's going to be very hard to hide the fact you got it, considering you're bidding all these disadvantages, some which are extremely visible, such as not competing in the next challenge, or not voting, or not strategizing following the next challenge. How badly did you want this idol?
More than anything, I wanted this so bad, because I was looking at it and I was like, okay, I have my idol that's good until 6. If I have an idol that's good until 5, I am final 4. I'm sure I can win a fire making challenge or have myself socially at final 4. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't anticipating that I'd win every challenge for the rest of the game. You know what I mean? So I was like, at that point, I was thinking, I was like, got my idol for 6, then I'm safe. Got my idol for 5, then I'm safe. So I took every single disadvantage on that list except for the ones that messed with idols. It was like, can't play it on yourself, or can't play an idol on you at 6 or something like that. So it was like, I took absolutely everything that I could, that wasn't anything to do with not playing in a challenge or not being able to play an idol. So I was like, I need to look out for my safety and then take everything else. So I ended up with 20 points, I think it was. I think it was like, I think I had 20 points. I think Brandon had like 21. I had like 19. He had 21, something like that. It was really close. But I think it worked out extremely well that he had that, because that was the biggest incentive that I pushed for voting for Brandon, because a lot of people didn't want to do it. And I was like, guys, he's got this safety at 5. What are we doing? You know what I mean? So I think it worked out well that he got it, out of all people. It would have been nice to have, but at the same time, I didn't end up needing it. So
yeah, because at the end of the day, ended up making a very big target for Brandon.
Yeah, it was probably his biggest reason he went home.
Yeah. So the challenge is the Golden Age stepping stones, where you have to paint a piece of a poster, essentially gold, and use that to get the movers way to and fro, to collect letters, and the letters spelled destiny, or our destiny, or my destiny, something like that.
Yeah, it was our destiny.
Yeah, and this was a really close challenge, because I remember the camera turned to Jamie's letters, and he's just like moving a Y. He had like your destin, and he's like, what could it be? He was like so close to switching to our destiny, and you end up cinching the victory.
Yeah, Jamie told me right before the challenge, he was like, he pulled me aside. He's like, you don't win this, you're going unanimously tonight. I'm like, okay, that's stressful. No pressure or anything. Thanks, bud.
You also have an idol though still in your pocket. You shepherded the entire game, so you're just kind of like, well, I have an ace in the hole.
Yeah, it was that, but I also didn't want to use it yet. You know what I mean? Whatever.
Well, you had to use it this round. Then it was used
right,
this
that
round.
Was 6. True. Yeah, but it was. He was like, you got to, because he didn't know, so he's like, you got to win this or you're going. I'm like, okay, no pressure or anything. Even though I had the idol, I felt kind of pressured. So we go into that. I see. I started off. I'm like, I think I'm moving pretty fast, and I look over. Andrew's got these like ice skates.
He broke the game.
I was like, what are you doing? And then Jess started doing it right next to me. I was like, okay, I got to do this too. I ripped my paper a little bit. I was like, oh no. I kept like accidentally stepping off because it was really slippery. I absolutely ruined my shoes up there. They're gold. I have these shorts that I absolutely loved. They were gold. I'm so glad that I took my shirt off for that challenge, because that's like my favorite shirt, and it would have been gold too. So yeah, it was really slippery paint as well. There was like a little hill that we had to go up of, and I like slipped down at one time. I was like, oh no. But I ended up using that. I think I was like 4th or 5th to finish my letters. I was like really behind at that point. And then I looked at it. I had like right away I spelled out round, but it was like when I was looking at them in the bin, I was also trying to piece it together in my brain as I was going back and forth, so I didn't have too much. I found out round, and also there was like a DSTY, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? So then I took off the R, took off the D. It was like OU, and then I put like the R down. I was like hour, and then I saw DYT. I was like destiny. So I was like, boom, I went as fast as I could, and I screamed. I was like, gyro, check, check, check. And then I won. Jamie told me that he knew it and threw it. I don't know if I believe that because he told me after the game. I don't know how much I believe that,
Mm-hmm.
but that was really nice of him if he did do that because I needed that pretty bad. Um, Will also said I'm pretty sure he had like his eye fell down the hill a little bit or something like that, and he didn't know where it was, but he had it, and he's like, "Where is the eye? I know where this is." So it was clutch. It was very clutch for me at that point, but it felt really good to have a second win
Mm-hmm.
under my belt. Yeah, it was a very very stressful challenge because I thought I was way behind.
Let's say you lose the challenge and everyone votes you unanimously somehow. Like they don't vote for Brand, they all vote for you. If you play your idol on yourself, who would you want to idol out?
Oh man, see, I feel like I would have voted for Brandon anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was scared of that idol. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? That was like my idea. That I think it was my idea to vote Brandon that round. I think that
Mm-hmm.
was me pushing that. Jamie
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to do it, but he also kind of wanted to do it because of the throwaway vote or whatever. Something happened. I don't remember, but I feel like I would have voted for Brandon anyways, just because I felt like most socially set with the rest of the people in the game. So I feel like it still would have ended up being the same. I probably just would have felt a lot more on my own after that vote.
Mm-hmm. So how difficult was the push for Brandon? Because it ends up being a 4 votes Brandon. Jess, who's just in the anti-Jamie camp at this point, sort of, votes for Jamie again, and then Brandon, who's been out of the loop, casts his vote for Andrew, which is negated by your idol.
Yeah, so Brandon had this disadvantage where he had to publicly cast his vote before.
Mm-hmm.
Also had to go to the Island of the Ages. He couldn't sit in on everything, and so that's how we were able to really easily push for him
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't there at all. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? He precast his vote. He was gonna precast his vote for me. That's why Jamie told me I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
But then he precasted for Andrew. And then I was like, okay, so that was the point where I had immunity. I had an idol. It could be only used that round. It was me. I was standing with Will and Andrew, and I was like, guys, so you know the mystery of the Quantlan idol because nobody knows where it is. Here it is, guys. It's going on one of you tonight. Whichever one of you needs it, it is for you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I felt like that was a really good thing for me because they're like, what? Because nobody, I feel like Jamie suspected I had it a little bit. They kind of were like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
okay. Um, but it was a complete shock. Um, and so it was pretty easy to push for Brandon because he wasn't there. He had the final five idol, and he was also flip flopping a little bit between Semiamu and Quantlan. So
Mm-hmm.
he was really close with like Jamie, obviously because of work. So he was like with us. He was also close with Will. But then he was also really close with the Semiamu girls, and so it was kind of just like we don't really know where his head's at right now. We want a set
Mm-hmm.
game. So we just kind of like it was really easy in a sense to push for him because of all the different things that were happening at that point.
So Brandon goes out. The next challenge is the Story of the Ages challenge. This is basically a challenge based off all the narratives you'd received about the different ages, Dark Ages, Golden Age, Middle Ages, etc. over the course of the game. You edged a victory here as well, fighting for your third straight win.
Yeah, so ever since the very beginning of the game, every single time we got a paper, every single time we got a little envelope, anything we had ever, I stuffed it in the side of my bag. You know what I mean? Because we had this little treasure chest that we got from the one part of the beginning of the game. I put every single paper we ever got into there from both tribes and all the tribe tasks for the BC bucks, all of the the little things that we found and stuff like that. I stuffed it all in this little box. So I was like, why are we getting this on paper if we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to need it later? You know what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely there to study. So I took it away from everybody. I put it on this little box, and then I don't know how I guessed because when I host my orgs and I'm doing like a trivia challenge based on the season, I'll do it at Final 5 or Final 6. Wasn't at Final 6, so I was like, okay, it's got to be here. We haven't had like a trivia based challenge yet. So I pull out every single piece of paper on our little stump table that we have, and I start writing down because I start writing down like boot order, island visit list, all these different things. I wrote it all out. I had this big piece of paper and I was studying it, and I was like, you guys can study too if you want. This is totally open for all of you. And they really appreciated that. They felt good about that. So I was studying, and then we go to the challenge, and he's like, it's trivia, and I was like, perfect. So it was really close. I don't think there was a part where I was ever losing, but it was definitely tied between Jamie, Will, and I for a really long time until a couple of questions. I got the first 6 right, then I got like 4 in a row wrong, but I had enough of a lead where it was okay, and then I ended up tied. And then it was the last question. I was up by 1. Jamie and Will were both below me by 1. And then I was like, okay, if I get this question right, I win. And then it was like this one where I wasn't sure between like B and C or something like that. And I was like, okay, I just put C. And then he said, okay, the correct answer is C. I dropped my whiteboard. I was like, oh, I did it. It was probably one of the best feelings. Like that challenge was so stressful because like I can't like run around and get my nerves out. You know what I mean? I'm just sitting there with this little whiteboard, like staring at Gyra, like, what are you gonna say? What is the right answer? I need to remember. So it was probably like one of the most stressful ones yet. But it ended up working out. I won. It was fine. Not going home. So I felt really good after that one. Yeah, it was very, very clutch of me to have the papers throughout the entire game. I think that really helped. If I didn't have those, I don't think I would have won, nor would I have won the next challenge with the list of the ages and stuff like that. So,
do you think that you had to win at Final 5 to survive?
Yeah.
So really, from Final 5 onwards, it was do or die.
I think almost Final 6 onwards was do or die. I don't know how bad it would have been at 6 because Brandon would have put his auto vote on me, and then I feel like a couple people would have joined in. So 6 was where I was feeling like 6 onwards. I was like, if I don't win, I'm gone, kind of a thing. But 5 specifically, people like, I think it was Jess told me at that point, she's like, you lose, I'm voting for you. I respect you so much in this game to be able to tell you that everyone's going to vote for you. Andrew was starting to feel a little bit with because he was like becoming a little bit more shady than he was before. And I was like, oh, I know what that means. That means you want to vote me out soon. Jamie had taken aback a little bit because he was in game mode, you know what I mean? But I knew he was still like my number 1 at that point. But he would back. Everybody was just kind of backing off a little bit. And I was like, oh, I know what that means. So it was at that point where it really felt do or die.
So with you off the block, the vote ends up. This is actually is the only vote you cast incorrectly the entire game. It's the sole Mara because you for your game, unfortunately, you end up pushing for Jessica here.
Yeah.
And the other members of the tribe all vote for Andrew. So it ends up being you're on the receiving end of a 2-3 vote.
Yeah. So it was that tribal where something I don't remember what happened, but something happened socially. Where I whispered something to Andrew. Oh, it was the final 5 idol had been left in somebody's shoe.
Yeah.
And
like
then
Brandon
we were like,
left it to
Jess,
who then gave it to Jamie.
Yeah, so Jamie had this like final 5 idol, and we didn't know if it was real or not because it was like we had asked Gyra, we're like, so did this go out of the game when Brandon was voted out, or can he actually will it to somebody? He was like, it was Brandon's possession. I was like, that doesn't help at all. Of course you're not gonna help me. So he held this out at tribal. I think we were gonna vote for Jamie. That was where there was a couple of us. Everything was me, Will, Andrew. We're gonna vote for Jamie at that point. And then Jamie pulls us out. He's like, my last thing in my bag of tricks. Because he was playing up where he was kind of giving up. And he was like, it's my last thing in my bag of tricks. I'm playing this on myself tonight. You guys just got to pick someone else. So I didn't want to take the chance, even though I kind of felt like it wasn't real. I was like, okay, I don't want to take the chance. So I whispered to Andrew in front of me first. I was like, we vote Jess, right? He's like, are you sure about this? I'm like, yeah, we vote Jess here. It's what has to happen. And then I look over to Will, who's directly to my right, and he's looking the other way, and I'm like, come on, Will, we gotta do this. And then Gyra goes, no more talking. And I'm like, oh, no. Will told me if I had told him, if I had looked to him a little bit sooner, he would have voted with us. I don't know how much I believe that because he was very, very close with Jess. I don't think
Mhm.
he would have. I think it was just kind of Andrew was a sinking ship at that point. So it yeah, that it was unfortunate, but Andrew had to go. There's one time I voted incorrectly. Sucks. I wish I could have been, 10 for 10, but
From talking with other players, it sounds like you and Andrew are really seen as like not a power couple, but a very tight alliance. And if they can't get at you, they're gonna get at Andrew the weaken you.
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense as to why I felt like if Jamie hadn't pulled that out, I feel like he would have gone. But that makes a lot of sense for them to want to go for me and Andrew because we were playing up like we had like a Chilltown bit in some of the confessionals and some of the tribes the challenges.
Yeah, because I remember, I don't know if it's after the final six or final five. I remember there's an extended live stream where it's just you and Andrew, and you both are ecstatic. And at this point, I'm just like, wow, I guess they're really close. And like, I don't think it really clicked for me before
Yeah.
that you two were such a tight pair.
Yeah, we were like just like we were really like that since the very beginning of the game. It was just kind of like this bro thing that we had, like a Winston and Brett kind of thing, or like a Mike and Will kind of thing. Like we were just like we were really playing that bit up, and we had like this phone thing. It was like, oh, Chilltown, we're just trying to be like the guys, you know what I mean? It was that kind of a relationship. So I definitely see why people, because we were very very outwards about our relationship, you know what I mean? Like we were almost annoying with it. So it makes sense why they did that.
So you're at the final four. The mini challenge is the blindfold obstacle, where essentially you start blindfolded, you have to do a bunch of things, that you have to eat the loot, and then you have to like do the list of the order of everyone who goes down the ages and the order of the ages themselves. There's a lot of different pieces here, and this is a long challenge filled with a lot of retching sounds from Jamie. And you pull out the victory again, last second victory, right? Like seconds before Will or Jamie. Talk to me about this challenge.
This was the hardest challenge in the entire game, for no other reason than the balut egg. But it was going into this. It was like starting to become night. The sun was starting to go down. I had had a conversation with everybody left, and they all go, "If you don't win, we are voting you out. We are sorry." Like it was like even I think Jamie at that point was like, "Dude, I can't save you." So it was at that point where I was like, "Just gotta go in and win. Just gotta go in and win." So we walk in, I'm standing by myself. I'm like, all right, do or die. So the first part of the challenge was we had to sort these blocks, these shape blocks, like this kid's toy, put them into the right things. I had this strategy where I felt the shape of every hole and where they were, and I memorized it. And then I would pick up a block with one hand, and I would feel every ridge, and then I would kind of like circle it around the top of the box until it fell in. And kind of knowing where it was, I was like, okay, this one kind of feels like a circle. I'm gonna put it like over here. So I was really quick at that. And then I finished that first. I had a good lead already, and then this was such a great thing to do blindfolded. I do this drill in soccer where we're standing in the middle of like 4 pylon cones, and then we do like this backwards shuffle to the left, and then we'll have to like touch the cone and go back to the middle, and then do that. You know what I mean? So I was like, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna do this side shuffle because it's like kind of the same distance apart. I did the side shuffle. I found the first one like right away, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to directly turn around and run. So I found the boxes really easily because of like my sense of being like knowing where I was, because sometimes we have to like do this challenge, like this drill blindfolded. So I was like, okay, this is right up my alley. So I found those really fast, ran over to my spot, and then the worst part of my entire Survivor BC experience was eating the balut egg. Oh wow, that was hard. Like that was like the worst thing I've ever done in my entire life. That was my dark age. That was absolutely awful. I will never do that again until maybe I play again. Probably won't have to do it again. But it's just I that was hard. I lost a good lead because of that stupid egg. Seeing the little baby duck staring at me and then having to eat it, I just it was awful. I almost threw up, and I was just I kind of looked at it. I was like, okay, I really don't want to do this. Maybe I just give up. Whatever, it's just a game. And then I looked at it. I was like, okay, but you'll never ever get to do this again. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you eat this, you win the game kind of a thing.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? I was like, eat this and you
And it
win.
was an eat this and you win the game kind of
It
thing.
really was. That was my last obstacle, pretty much. So I ate the egg, and then I ran over to the papers, and I grabbed as many as I could because I didn't really understand it at that point. I didn't really get it because I kind of like was too stressed out to listen at that point. So I picked up all these names, brought them over to my paper, and then it was like this big list, and I was like, oh, I have no idea. So this was the part where I really lost my lead. Um, got to a point where I think I was like 2 off like the whole entire time and just switched to the wrong ones.
Mhm.
It was like I had like a Taylor instead of a Brandon and like a Will instead of like a Taylor or something. It was like the 3 of them I kept messing up. And then everybody gets there and I see Jess completely abandoned her board, right? And she's helping out Will. And I was like, oh great, it's the game on. And then Jess and Will are going over to Jamie and they're helping each other. And I was like, wow, it is really a 3 against 1 right now. This sucks. So what I did is they're all helping Will out, right? Because Will knows this like almost the back of his hand. Like he's like very like right away. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
He's just missing like 1. So I went over to Will's board and I copied it like word by word. I copied his completely. And then whatever he would change, I'd run over. Like I was just, it was a point where I was standing over Will's board. Whenever he made a change, I'd run over my board and change that. And then it was the point where he changed. It was like he changed a Brandon out to a Taylor. And then Gyro was like, Will is correct. And I was like, I gotta go. So I run over to my board and I switch it out. I think I switched the wrong one. Gyro was like, no. And I was like, okay, no, it's this one. And then he's like, Braden is correct. And then I knew my ages. I was like, I studied those for the last challenge. I studied them before this challenge. I was like, I know my ages. And then Will goes, check. And I'm like, oh no. But I kept writing. And he wrote medieval age instead of
Mhm.
middle age. And that saved my game. That little simple mistake saved my entire game and won me $500. And that is so crazy to me how little things like that can change so much. But yeah, I knew mine. I was like, gyro. And then I got it right. And that was my big like I always try to never over celebrate when I win challenges because when I play orgs sometimes and I win like a clutch scenario, I'll really celebrate and everyone's like,
Mhm.
wow, you're cocky. I don't like that. And then so I let it all go because I was like, it was 3 against 1. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like that was the most clutch win I think you'll ever see. You know what I mean? So I just like I screamed, I ran over, I laid in the grass, I was like, I did it. Because that was like a good hour of just stress and
Mhm.
oh I was done. Um so yeah, I won that and they're all like, great job, dude. It's you know what? Well, good on you. You know what
Mhm.
I mean? So I felt good at that point. That was probably the highest point for me in the game.
So you pushed the vote out Jessica this round.
Yeah. So the original plan was Jess and Will were voting for Jamie, and they were like, you know what? You join us on voting Jamie. This will be great. It's probably the best thing to do. And I was like, yeah, you know what? It is the best thing to do.
Mhm.
But then at the same time, I was like, jury vote. And then at the same time, I was like, fire making. And at the same time, I was like, double relationship. So Jess and I had a conversation that night. This was like where I really set myself up. I talked to Jess and she's like, you know what? I told you before this, I would have voted you out no matter what if
Mhm.
you hadn't won. I'm totally okay if you vote for me this one. At least give me a chance in fire making.
Mhm.
Jamie kind of had the same conversation with me. He's like, you know what? We've been together since the very beginning. You want to send me to fire making instead of sending me home? I would really appreciate that. And I was like, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna leave it up to fate because
Mhm.
I don't want to be the one to decide between the 2 of them going because
Mhm.
at that point they're probably the 2 people closest to me. You know what I mean? I also know that I'm not beating either of them in the end.
Mhm.
So I was like, you know, I'll let them duke it out. Whatever. If one of them wins fire making, it's a better incentive to vote for them in the next round because they have that on their resume.
Mhm.
So I was like, fire making is a good thing, and it's like a blessing and a curse. So
Mhm.
I tied the vote because I would have preferred Jamie to go at this point, but I didn't want to straight up vote for him.
Mhm.
Because I was like, I can't beat Jamie more than I can't beat Jess. It was like I can't beat Jamie, probably can't beat Jess, might be able to beat Will.
Mhm.
So I was like, I want Jamie to lose, but at the same time, I don't want to straight up vote him out.
Mhm.
So I sent them both to the fire making because I wanted to tie the vote, leave it a chance. It was also so much fun. It was like a Survivor BC first going to fire making,
Mhm.
so you know it was cool. I really thought Jess had it, and I was
Mhm.
really like, I was really rooting for her because like I felt like it would have been better. Because I didn't know what the last challenge was gonna be. You know what I mean? I was like,
Yeah.
okay, Jamie might beat me in this challenge. You know, I feel like I might have a better chance against Jess. Kind of a thing. I have so many things going through my brain, but Jamie ends up winning.
Mhm.
And so I mean, I wasn't upset. I just would have preferred the other result.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was at that point where I was totally content with whatever happened, no matter what, because I made the final four. We have this little like, if you see up here, we have this little like, we all had like little idol,
Mhm.
the idol wrappings. All four of us had some, so we wrote each other's names on it. Wrote final four, Survivor BC. We had this awesome little moment. So I was really content with however way the game went at that point, because we were just like, we kind of calmed down. We're like, all right, you know what, this is game on, you know. So we felt really good at that point. um Jess leaves, and then it's the three of us Quantling guys at the end, and we're
Mhm.
just like, it was, that was a moment that like I don't know if I'll ever forget. It was like, we made it, you know what I mean? We talked about this day one of this game. We made it felt like so much longer than 6 days, but we were like, we made it, you know what I mean? It was such a journey, like all these people, we made it. So it was a great feeling to be in the final three at that point.
Yeah, I remember this. The final four wraps up around 9 to 10 at night, and then an hour or two later, you start your final immunity challenge.
Yeah,
There's no rest for the weary allowed in Survivor BC.
I went to bed. Jamie was sleeping. I like just put on my other clothes. I like threw my hoodie on, threw my pants on. I was like, okay, I'm going to bed. Probably 15 minutes later, there was a bright light in our eyes, and they're like, okay, challenge time. I was like, oh, you're kidding me. Because we were like, it was like 2 hours in between, right? Because
Mhm.
we were like, okay, so are we having a challenge? Like, we can't tell you anything. And we're like, okay, whatever. And then we just like went to bed, right? And then we get woken up. They're like, okay, challenge time. I was exhausted. I should not have started to go to sleep, because like when I was standing there, I almost passed out like in that last challenge, because I
Mhm.
like I already got into sleep mode. You know what I mean? So my brain was
Mhm.
like, okay, sleep time. Yep,
Yep.
we're going to bed. Um, and so yeah, it was mean. It was mean of them to do that. So yep, but we go into our final three challenge. Yeah.
So this is like a 4 hour ordeal, right? That ends up with you, I think, heads up against Will on 1 foot. Any highlights or negotiations or things you want to talk about that happened in this 4 hours?
This at this point, I felt like I at this point I was going to final two no matter what.
Hmm.
I felt, at least, because it was a point where I set myself up where if I lost, but I think both of them might have taken me. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Jamie would have taken me to prove loyalty and win against me. Will would have taken me because he's always true to his word, and he told me he would have taken me because final four, I had a really good conversation with Will, and I
Hmm.
was like, we put them in fire, and then the two of us vote out whichever one loses. You know what I mean? We had a really good conversation. I was like, I want to go to the end with you, Will. We're going to it was such a good conversation. Like, I don't remember the whole thing,
Hmm.
but it was a really good conversation, and it's what really set the two of us up to go to final two. We just had this great deal. And then I felt like at a point they were trying to get the other to drop so that they could drop for me. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like I don't know if it was essentially that, but both of them, like once the other dropped, the other was dropping too.
Hmm.
Or if I dropped, they would have fought it out to bring me. You know what I mean? Like I
Hmm.
feel like I was going to the final two no matter what. Only one scenario where I was winning, potentially. I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah, it got to a point where I had it was really late. We're like, we got to get up early for final tribal tomorrow, and I was like, why don't we make this challenge harder? What if we go on 1 foot? And both of them were like, yeah, you know what, we're staying here until 4 days from now, so we'll go on 1 foot. I was exhausted, but I knew that I could stay on 1 foot for
Hmm.
a really long time, so I was like, okay, well, this probably benefits me. And so I had convinced everybody, and we're on 1 foot now. I think that was maybe about the 4 hour mark, and then it
Yeah.
lasted about 20 minutes. I think the hour was like 4 hours, 20 minutes.
Hmm.
Challenge lasted. But yeah, we were on 1 foot for a bit, and then Jamie dropped, and then it was maybe about a minute later. Will was like, "All right, dude, we did this. Hope you're staying true to your word." And he dropped, put his foot down. He's like, "Good job, bud." And then that was it. I was like, I just won. Like that, it was that moment where I was like, I just won the game.
So from what I hear, who you have taken the final tribal council changed from the moment directly after the challenge to the next morning. Is that
The
true?
sorry?
Who
Like
you would have voted out would have changed given if you had to vote go to the tribal council immediately after that challenge, who you voted out would have been different from who you actually did vote out.
it would have been the same no matter what.
Okay, so it wouldn't have
I
changed.
No, I went to bed that night and I was like, this sucks. Because
Mm-hmm.
that at that point, it was like Jamie and I had been like this since the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. We had pretty much ran the game. I don't want to say ran the game, but we were in the core of everything that ever happens.
Mm-hmm.
Um, on one side or another. It was like a dynamic duo, like a Batman and Robin kind of thing. And I felt like it was the moment where I had to rise up to the top. And I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
is like a beautiful story. It was he was clearly the front runner. Like definitely like if the winner is right here on the DVD cover, Jamie is right here in the front middle. You know what I mean? Like it's like no matter what, Jamie is front middle of the DVD cover because he
Mm-hmm.
was like the main character of the entire season.
So Jamie has a question. Apparently, you and him had a breakup conversation at some
A
point in that
breakup.
last day.
I don't remember a breakup conversation, but I do remember just like how upsetting it was. Just like I think we were standing there with each other, and we're like, we know what's happening, and we were just crying, and it was just like, I remember specifically we had this one conversation like a couple rounds back where we were just like bawling our eyes out. We had so many like emotional moments where we were just like crying with each other and upset, and it was like my safe place. You know what I mean? Like I just
Mm-hmm.
felt like safe all the time, and then knowing that I had to like vote him out because I was like, I need to think with my brain. I wanted to bring Jamie to the end, but there was no chance ever that I was winning against Jamie. We even asked in the after party on Friday,
Mm-hmm.
and he would have beat me 4-3.
Mm-hmm.
That's the right numbers, right? 4-3. Yeah,
Yeah,
four to
7 days.
three, because I would have lost Jess's vote and Taylor's vote.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other two still wouldn't have voted for me. So it would have been 4-3. I would have lost maybe 5-2. I don't remember who said what,
Mm-hmm.
but I would have lost against Jamie, and I knew that the whole game. And that's why like 5-4-3 it was like okay, I need to cut him.
Mm-hmm.
As hard as it was, I just like it was awful, but it's the game.
So Jamie goes out. It's you and Will, final tribal council. What were your thoughts preparing yourself in the tribal council, and which jurors you think you had or had to work for?
So first of all, that morning we got delivered breakfast from like A&W.
Eggs.
They had the nerve to give us eggs. They had the nerve to give us eggs. But anyways, it was good. I barely ate because I was just like gonna throw it all up out of nervousness. I was walking around camp. We kind of like Will and I were like, okay, dude. We shook hands and we're like, all right, this is it. This is what we've been waiting for. Good luck. It was really relaxed. It wasn't like we weren't like head to head. We are just like, all right, whatever happens, we're happy. I was totally good with losing to Will. I think it was totally good with losing to me too. So it was just like it was a very obviously we both wanted to win, but it was like it was very relaxed and we were very, very okay with whatever scenario. We just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
try our hardest. So he takes his spot over in the original Quantling camp. I'm over in the Semiyamu camp. I'm just walking. I'm pacing circles, and I'm like, okay, I've got Andrew. And then I kind of felt at that point I was like, Taylor's kind of mad at me probably. I think Jenny's mad at me. I probably maybe have Jess's vote, but at that point I felt like I had nothing else. I felt like I had Andrew for sure. That was one vote. And then the other ones were totally up for grabs. So I was writing my speech and I wanted to have a good story. I wanted to have like because Will told me like the whole game he told everybody he's like I'm gonna see if I can go to final two with whoever and I'm gonna try and talk my way to the win and I want to just make sure that I could out talk him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was his whole plan. He's like I'm just gonna try and out talk whoever I'm there with. So I'm like okay I'm gonna try and out talk you. So I came up with this whole like I had a survivor bucket list. I don't remember exactly what I wrote down,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just like came out here. These are the couple things that I wanted to do. Now the only thing left on my list is to win. I need your help, kind of a thing. Like it was kind of like I tried to do like almost like a business plea, a business
Mm-hmm.
speech kind of a thing. And I was like, you guys, you want to support me like an election speech? I was like, you want to support me to be the face of your season kind of a thing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I was trying to sound really really good with all my answers and try and hit people emotionally because I knew that's the route he would take because a lot of his answers were family based.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have children, but
It's a good
I
thing.
I had good relationships with everybody, and so I was like, I came out here as 17, like 5 years younger than the next youngest person or something like that, and I just want to prove myself because I'm really hard on myself, which is entirely true, and I just kind of spoke from the heart, and I think
Hmm.
people really liked it. But yeah, going into that, I sat down on the little crate. I looked at Jamie. He goes, "You're losing." He mouthed the words like "you lost" or "you're losing," and I was like, oh no, like I really thought that I lost, so I just needed to
Hmm.
like talk my heart out, you know what I mean? I wanted to say as much as I could to make people want to vote for me. It was really stressful.
Hmm.
So
So you end up winning. At the end of the day, you end up winning. You lose Brandon's vote, you lose Stevie's vote, but you get the other 5 votes, and you become the eighth winner of Survivor BC. Like, just what was going through your head when the votes were revealed and you see this outcome?
even after like the final plea and everything, when people were getting up to vote, I put my head in my hands like this, and I
Hmm.
was like, I lost. Like I was like, there's no way that I just came out here and did this and won. Um, because bringing it full circle, the game that I found, like the org that I found out about this, through like I Love Money. It was with a bunch of adults. It was my first time playing with people that were outside of my age range. I ended up doing the exact same thing. I was like this little innocent guy until like final 10. I won every single challenge to the end. Made final 2 with my number 1, and then I lost unanimously to a bitter jury because they're like, "You voted us all out. We don't like
Hmm.
that. You're also 17 and you just outsmarted." I was 14. You're
Hmm.
14. You just outsmarted every single one of us.
Hmm.
Why do we want to give you the win when you just made us all look like fools?
Hmm.
So going in, I was like, "Oh God, what if this happens again? What if all these people are upset with me? What if they don't want me to represent because I'm just 17? You know what I mean? I'm just like this little guy. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I why not give it to Will, who's more experienced and more able to represent? I don't know. I had all these different doubts going on in my mind, and
Hmm.
I thought the exact same thing was gonna happen. I was like, oh, how full circle would that be if I got second place again? Um, to a bunch of people that I are not in my age range. And so it was when everybody was voting, I was like really upset. I was like, I really don't think that I won this. I don't
Hmm.
know if I had anybody's vote. I felt like by the answers, or by the way people reacted, I don't know whose vote I had. I maybe thought it was gonna be 5-2 in favor of Will. Um I was like, oh, maybe I got Taylor's vote back. She seemed like she liked my answer. Maybe I'll have
Hmm.
Andrew Taylor, whatever. So at that point, I kind of accepted defeat. Jara comes back and he starts revealing the votes, and it's 2-2. I'm like, okay, this is where the rest of them are Will, and then it was my name. I was like, what? And then he goes, the winner of it. I was like, oh my god! Like it was such a surreal moment, and it still hasn't gone through my head even like a month later. Just like the adrenaline, the rush, and the amazing feeling that I had like after he said the winner of Survivor, like before my name. Like I remember I put my head into Will, and I was like, oh my god! And he's like, you did it, man, you did it, bud. And I was like, oh, this is great. It was like, honestly, I haven't had too much life yet. This was probably like that
Hmm.
moment right there was probably the best moment of my entire life so far.
So, looking back in your game as a whole, what do you think was the strongest part of your game, and what part do you think was kind of your weakest, or things you think you could have improved upon?
Strongest point of the game, I think, was the way that I offered myself in the beginning.
Hmm.
I going in, I was like, I want to be everybody's friend. I want everybody to like me and want to take me far. And it really was the relationships that I made
Hmm.
very early on that carried me through the rest of the game. And I was always pushing the Quantly needs to stay together. Quantly needs to stay strong. And I feel like I was one of the main people that had like there was like one of the people that were the glue. Maybe
Hmm.
more socially, but Will was a big part of the glue. But I felt like I was somebody that was always pushing the narrative. And I was like, whenever people were starting to go off a little bit, I was like, we need to stay quantum strong. This is what we
Hmm.
need to do. We need to go into the merge, all of us together. Um, I think it was, yeah, making myself not being intimidated and just being social and being able to deal with the discomfort of being like 5 years, 6 years younger than everybody else around me, and brand wide eyes, brand new to all this. And so I think it was offering myself socially and friendly and being able to be socially adaptable in the beginning stages of the game. And then obviously strongest point, like winning 5 immunities in a row, that was like pretty good too. But that's an obvious answer. Weakest point, probably I it never really like ended up being a downfall, but I would say like the main thing going into like any game ever is you need to be able to um, defer your brain
Mm-hmm.
from your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You need to play with your brain at all points of the game if you want to win. If you wanna get fifth or sixth, play with your heart. You know what I mean? If you want to win the game, you gotta play with your head, and that was probably like my biggest struggle throughout the entire game was I just met these people. Like I don't know how I was so like emotionally like bound to so many people, but I just didn't want to vote anybody out. It was really hard to vote a couple of people out. I cried more than I've cried in the last like 10 years like
Mm-hmm.
during the game. Like it was that was my biggest struggle was the emotional side of the game. As much as I came in and I was like, I'm gonna be brain no matter what, strategical player, I really surprised myself with how emotional it could get, and I will never make fun of people on actual Survivor for crying ever again.
I think that's one of my favorite things about playing these games is it gives me so much better understanding and context of what I see in the show. Because like you
Yeah.
see like Ben from the Winners at War kind of breaking down at Final Five and crying and being like, I just need to follow my sword. And you're watching like it's a $2 million. Why would you do this?
Yeah.
But after playing the game, you're like, oh, you build these relationships and they mean so much to you.
Especially being out there for like 39 days instead of 7.
Mm-hmm.
I was crying my eyes out at day 6, day 5, and these
Mm-hmm.
people are out here at day like 33. Like I it's so much harder. And I said this thing after the steak reward. I will never make fun of the people on Survivor for crying over food ever again because I cried over that steak. That was so good. And it was only 4 days without normal food. Like I had a good meal right before, like 4 days ago. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I was like, it's so emotionally challenging and just like feeling it rather than watching it, it's such a different experience. And I feel like I'm not going to watch Survivor the same ever again. I'm actually going to be able to understand like the emotional like struggle that these people are feeling.
So I'd like to wrap up by asking you some kind of rapid fire questions, just get your immediate take on things.
Mm.
So for you, what was your favorite challenge?
Favorite challenge? Oh boy.
You had a lot, I'm sure.
Mm, I don't. That's a hard question because there's a lot of them that I really liked. The one that immediately came to mind was the clutch final four. Even though I hated the balut and that was the worst part of the whole experience.
Mm-hmm.
I, I I might have to say maybe final three just because of like how like it was like a we made it guys kind of a moment. It was just such a surreal feeling the whole time. I felt great. It wasn't like my favorite actual challenge to
Mm-hmm.
do. The favorite like doing challenge was probably the water one with the candles. That was a lot of fun. But best feeling was definitely that final three challenge.
What was the lowest moment in the game for you?
Lowest moment of the game, probably the Taylor vote.
Mm-hmm.
It was very hard having all these people stressing me out and needing me. They're like, we need you in order to do good in this game. We need you. You have to pick between if these people do good in the game or if these people do good. And it was like that was the point where it was like the emotional thing we were just talking about. That's where it was the absolute worst.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I knew what I was doing the whole time and I had my psychopath confessional afterwards where I knew what I was doing the whole time, but I played up the emotions, obviously. It
Mm-hmm.
just sucked so bad.
What was the highest moment in the game for you?
Winning. It was, when he said the winner, and I was like, oh man, that's it. Or maybe it's either that, because that's an obvious answer, or when Will stepped off the final three,
Mm-hmm.
or after I won the final four. It was like there were so many high points at the very end of the game
Mm-hmm.
because it was very, very do or die. I would say like the final six onwards, winning those challenges, highest points ever, and they just kept on getting better. But I obviously I have to say when Gyra said that I won the game.
If you were in the jury and the vote between Jamie or Will, do you know where your vote would have gone?
I think I would have voted for Jamie. I absolutely love Will to death, but like I said, Jamie was just the main character of the whole season, and I almost felt wrong taking it away from him, just because of how hard he worked and how good of a story he had, like with wanting to prove it to his friends and everybody that didn't believe in him. And I liked his story. I would have voted for him if I was in the jury against absolutely anybody in the game.
Who surprised you the most out there?
Jamie. Jamie. Yeah, he had this big story at the beginning. He's like, yeah, he was like really emotional at the beginning. He was like, you know what? I just like I really I want to prove it to all these people. I don't go out and do this very often. And then he was just like the main character. And I was like, I was so proud of Jamie and everything that he accomplished. And I felt really wrong in taking the win away from him because he definitely deserved it, probably more than I did. But it's the game. I was very surprised and very proud.
Who did you not work with that you wish you did?
Stevie.
Really?
As weird as that, like as weird as that sounds, I really wanted to work with him because like even after, he was probably one of the people I got along with best in like the after party and everything. It was just like either Stevie or David. David's a really good answer as well. I really got along with David during the blindfold stuff, and I was like, this guy's funny. We've hung out like after the game and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, it was those two specifically probably. But I really wanted to work with Stevie just because he was like a very big character, and I was like, I really like your personality. But that's the exact reason I voted him out. So I don't know.
Any other favorite moments from camp life?
The puppet show was very nice. We had so many moments where we were just like hanging out. The curse of the jackets. I had this jacket that I gave to Evelyn day one, and she got voted out. And then every single time I gave somebody the jacket, they got voted out the same day. And it was like Andrew started wearing the jacket like after the Jenny vote because I think Jenny had the jacket and then she got voted out. And then Andrew had the jacket, and I was like, Andrew, you're wearing the jacket. And he's like, oh no. And then they blindsided him in Final Five, and I was like, oh no. It was pretty funny. Everybody that wore the jacket went home. It was kind of like a joke that was running.
Would you play another live reality game?
I would. I definitely would. It was like the best thing that I've ever done. Like watching the show since I was like 5-6 years old. Like I've lived and breathed this show for so long, and then finally getting to play on it and then winning. Like I feel like I could stop there, but I definitely don't want to stop there. You know what I mean? Like I would do this experience like 20 times over again, as hard as it was. And if I go do another one, it'll probably be harder. You know what I mean? But I would definitely do this over and over and over again, and hopefully the real show as well.
Well, I think that's all the questions I have in mind. Is there anything else about your game you want to point out or bring up?
No, other than the fact I wish I made more confessionals. I really wish I made more confessionals because there was so much going on that I had to do with that it's going to look like other people were doing. But I was very, very in there. You know what I mean? I just never had the time because I was always talking to people. I just didn't have the time to make as many confessionals as I wanted. And I feel like, I don't know. I feel like there's some credit that won't go towards me, but it's totally fine.
You won.
I won. So I get my picture on the end at the end. Anyways, so it's whatever.
Well, Braden, thank you so much for the last 2 hours for hearing all the details about your game. Again, congratulations on your victory. In a couple of years, we'll be able to see see the episodes.
I know, right?
But for now, everyone who tuned in and listened, thank you so much for your time. This is not the end of the Survivor BC deep dives. Hopefully, I'll be talking to Jenny and some other contestants in the near future. So keep your eyes open for those to appear. There's other Survivor BC content that is coming your way. My season, Rock Rain Valley, season 6. The trailer for that season's on YouTube, and episodes I think are slated to come late October or so. I personally play like trash, but if you want to see other players, including Taylor St. Louis from this season, play and do really well, give it a shot. It'll be a lot of fun. So thank you all, and everyone have a good rest of your day.